Hey, chat. Good evening. I am sorry. I got a call and I had to take care of some issues. Uh, so you'll have to, have to suffer. I'm sorry about the wait. So the ATF tried kidnapping Clyde. Well, 2.0 wouldn't allow that. Um. Oh. So you guys, welcome to the Friday night show. And yes, I saw that Mickey Steins, the sheriff in Lecker County, Kentucky, had a hearing today about the motion to dismiss. We will cover that at some point here. But tonight we've got Laura Loomer's deposition that got leaked. And holy cow, it's a deposition Lollercoaster. It is really, 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 really good. And oh my gosh, chat. You're in for a treat. There are some funny parts in this. But you can also see two attorneys just go at it. Um, and from here, it's, when you want to learn about who Laura Loomer is, I think some of you guys, Wheezy, you're like, I don't know who this Laura Loomer chick is. You know who she is if you've seen her. And Laura Loomer is, buddy. Laura Loomer is, this is Laura Loomer here, if you've ever seen her before. She is an investigative journalist, and just an overall tool. But what the fuck was that? Hold on, Chad. I just knocked some shit over. I gotta figure out what the hell that was. Give me 1 second here. Damn it. All right, we're back. Sorry, I knocked over some shit when I was bumping around with my feet, and it's just been one of those days, guys. It's just one of those days. Oh, it's one of those days. Anyway, who is Laura Loomer? Well, Laura Loomer is, I don't know what to say about her, but Laura Loomer is Laura Loomer. She has been a long time journalist that allegedly is on the right, but she's just a complete scumbag and lunatic. She has been, fighting against the big media and everything out there. Here's a picture of Laura Loomer if you've never seen her. And you're like, wow, somebody actually got plastic surgery and did this to their face. Yes, they did. They did. She is a lol cow. She's a crazy person. This is Laura Loomer. And Laura Loomer is just, and she's been a shit stirrer basically her entire career. She is famous for going around and fucking around with people. She's kind of like what Alex Stein does, except she's not funny about it. Like, here's her confronting Michael Avenatti. And then she's just not a nice person. And you might say, wait, is that, who she is? Well, here's Laura Loomer before and after her plastic surgeries. Like a pretty good side by side. And you're like, whoa, buddy. And this is just another example of just like, this is Laura Loomer before and then Laura Loomer now. Yeah, she is a she's not even a Trump person. She's a clout chaser. She a hoe. She a clout chasing hoe. Okay? That's all she is. That is all she is. All right? She doesn't really care about anything. She's not really doing anything. But she's famous for being a moron. One of the more famous things she did, or that she's known for, is being an idiot. Is, you know, chaining herself to the doors of Twitter in New York City. And this is her here.
What do you hope will come of your protest today? What do you hope will happen as a...
And this is at the Twitter headquarters in New York City. Is she from Saw? Yeah. She's a very big Israel First person. Yeah.
Result of this, there are a lot of
I hope that everybody can see that this is egregious, regardless of your
Notice she chained herself to like a door and the other door opens.
politics. I think that we can all agree. Someone please grab that. I think that we can all agree, if you show the comparison, who has the Farrakhan tweet. That if you get banned for this in America, but you don't get banned for that, well, the only thing I can think of is either Twitter hates Jews, Facebook hates Jews, right?
And guys, this is back in like early, this is like 2016 time frame. I think maybe even a little
Or
earlier.
they're biased against conservatives. So what is it?
Oh, 2018,
Why are you
sorry.
allowed to? Why is it that a Jewish journalist
This is 2018.
getting banned, a Jewish conservative journalist is being banned from Twitter for posting facts, but then Louis Farrakhan can post, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm anti-termite. Hitler was a great man, advocate for jihad, and then he is still on Twitter. He hasn't even been suspended from Twitter.
So what happened there?
Ain't no motherfucking what?
The fuck? It's like playing the next video, I guess. Whatever. Anyway. Yes, I don't know. Melanie Mack is pretty damn cringe too. Yes, this has been the before times. So I think the description you're looking for is she's a cunt. Well, there's that too. But she is also, I mean, she's entirely a clout chasing piece of shit. It's hard to choose who's worse, Laura Southern or Laura Loomer. Really? You're gonna have to make at least you can look at Lauren Southern. It's Lauren Southern, not Laura Southern. It's Lauren Southern. At least you can look at Lauren Southern. Did she chain herself to a revolving door? No, she's not that retarded, but she's pretty close. She's pretty close. Laura Loomer has made more anti-Semites than she has stopped. Oh, I agree. Laura Loomer is more amusing than 100% she is. 100% she is. Yes, she is very anti-Ron DeSantis, which I personally don't mind him. I think he's doing a pretty good job in Florida. My parents love him. My dad is going to be sad the day he leaves the governor's mansion. Lauren Southern allegedly got AIDS from Destiny, though. I mean, yeah, but that's okay. I'd still sit in a room with her. I wouldn't want, if I sat in a room with Laura Loomer, I'd be thinking, do I have to, I need to get out of here, or do I have to kill her to get out of here? Is she the one who ate dog food? Yes. Laura Loomer is on the camera eating dog food, and that we'll go from there. But yeah, she did eat fucking dog food. Here you go, chat. This is her eating dog food. Yes. This is her in a dog shell here. A dog shell, a nutshell. Although she's, yes, positive. Yes, and as somebody said here, Dolly, for Dolly Talk. Guys, say hi to Dolly. He running his show, doing the courtroom roulette for $2. Says, enjoy some positive dog food on me. I get that reference. Here you go. Oh, no, that's not the actual. Damn it, where's the video? Yeah, here you go.
Positive really is an amazing company. Not only do they have these emergency pet kits, but they also have these supplements here. And this is human grade. Okay, this is human grade. And I just want to show you now. I'm going to actually do this live on air so you can see for yourself. Okay, 100% human grade ingredients is what it says here on the package. And the ingredients are Alberta grass-finished bison liver, Alberta grass-finished bison heart, Alberta grass-finished kidney. These are the same type of nutrients that you can find in the beef organs that you purchase for yourself, right? But this is all protected bison that comes from Canada. So that means that there's no hormones, there's no vaccines given to the bison. So you could actually share these nutrients with your animals. So you could eat this yourself. And I'm going to show you, this isn't a gimmick. This is not just, some trash dog food from China. Okay. These are supplements, and these are products that are so healthy and natural that you could actually eat it yourself. So you can see here, Positive Bison. It clearly says dog food topper. And I'm going to put this in my mouth right now. So it tastes like meat. And maybe that is disgusting to you, but I'll show you right here. Look, this is the bison product right here. It clearly says dog food topper. You can see on camera. Actually tastes good. I'm not going to lie. So 100% human grade ingredients, nutrition for your dog in every bite. It's so healthy that you could even eat it yourself.
Yes, fresh diseased bison. Yes, with brucellosis. All the way from Canada. But yeah, she has her Loomer Unleashed. That is her on Rumble. And she also, her website is loomered.com. Like if she gets a dub, she calls it boom, you got loomered. It's so gay. So gay. Her nose has a 45-degree left turn and it freaks me out. Yeah. You know, they took, like, they used, they made impressions of her nose and they put those on tunnel boring machines to chisel through granite. The Liver King would, yeah. Yeah, Beth says, I don't understand the problem. I ate dog food as a kid all the time. Yeah. Spuggut says in the UK, pet food has to be fit for human consumption. I mean, you could eat most dog foods. It would be very nasty and not flavorful and all that, but you could eat like puppy chow. It just wouldn't be very good. And, you know, it'd be, you know, I would never do it, but you could do it in an emergency. But yes, protected bison equal cattle. Well, there's that too. So, can you imagine what her plastic surgery is going to look like in 30 years? Oh my God. I'd put money on Sean eating dog food for the check she got for that. Well, you never got to worry about that because that ain't happening. So, hold on here. Oh, hold on. Man, I forgot to fix something. Hold on, give me 1 second here. God, who the hell was making... Who the hell was... My neighbors are going crazy. Like, I hate it when they do that out there. I hate it when they do that. The car alarm just keeps going off. It's like, you should be allowed. Oh, by the way, last night they took down the sandwich thing for the guy in Memphis. I don't have much screen shooting. It's just that, like, half a second he held up a gun. And they're like, that's dangerous. And I tried to appeal to the Pejits that run, you know, YouTube. And they're like, sorry, sir. And I tried it. I'm like, I'm just a humble Indian reporter, sir. And it didn't count. It didn't count for anything. It didn't count for anything. So that is the problem there. Let me see here. I gotta fix this. I eat Clyde's treats on stream when it's whiskey night. No, those things look nasty. Probably full of yes. Are you feeling better? Oh, I feel 100%. I woke up at like 4 a.m, like roaring to go. And like I woke up, I was under a ton of blankets, and I woke up at 4 a.m. I was like freaking sweating. I could pass for the biggest Indian, yes, ever. All right. So with that said, Laura Loomer is suing Bill Maher. And if you guys don't know why, it's because of this comment here.
I think maybe Laura Loomer's in an arranged relationship to affect the election because she's very close to Trump. She's 31, looks like his type. We did an editorial here a few years ago. You're remembering it already. It was basically, who's Trump fucking? Because I said, you know, it's not nobody. He's been a dog for too long, and it's not Melania. I think we may have our answer this week.
We're going to get to this. Just hold on.
I'm just saying. I think maybe Laura.
Okay,
Loomer
so Laura Loomer is suing Bill Maher and HBO for defamation of that comment. Wombat Mommy, we were getting to that. So why is she giving a deposition? She's suing Bill Maher for defamation. She's suing HBO for defamation. She wants $150 million from this. Well, eventually, when you do a lawsuit, you're gonna have depositions. Yes, guys, she is only 30. Well, she's 32 now. But yes, she was born in 1993. So, but yes, she has just been cringe everywhere she's gone. She ran for Congress, got BTFO'd, and everything. So she sued for, isn't truth an absolute defense? Well, there's that. I thought you asked me not to do it. You asked me to do this, Maddie. So I'm just responding to your request. I'll fix it later. That's a rough 32. Yeah, well, it's like Indiana Jones says, it's not the years, it's the miles. Why is she younger than me? Oh, anyway, she's suing Bill Maher for defamation and HBO. Now, oh, yes, she did. She did cry to Jim Medicare about her tires. Yes. Yes, she actually was involved in the sector for a bit. She was in the America First movement for a while, kind of flirted around with Nick Fuentes and them, although Nick Fuentes is a big homo. But yeah, she kind of brushed through. Like Haley's Comet, passing through the sector. You know, every once in a while, she kind of does what she does. I forgot about that Keopathic. So anyways, she sued, and Bill Maher's team and HBO's team wanted a deposition. So, so here's how things are starting off, chat. This is out of the middle district of Florida. And things are already off to a great start with the deposition before we get to actually the meat of it. So here's an order from the court. And the court is seriously concerned by plaintiff and her counsel's apparent efforts to circumvent this court's rulings. The court has ruled that discovery in this case, including the deposition of Miss Loomer, shall be used solely for purposes related to the litigation. If and when depositions are filed in support of a motion for summary judgment or other pretrial motions, then they will be judicial records to which the public has access, subject to any claimed confidentiality. Plaintiff has objected to these rulings of that, and the matter remains pending before the district judge. So the judge said, you're not just going to leak everything out into the press. Nevertheless, and without waiting for a ruling, plaintiff's counsel filed the deposition in its entirety in support of objections to my most recent discovery order. That's why we have it. He says, in that order, I entered a protective order regarding confidentiality and the restrictions on use of discovery materials and compelled plaintiff to provide a full and complete response to arrange a discovery request related to her alleged damages. Plaintiff's contention that the deposition transcript is necessary for the district judge's resolution of the objection seems disingenuous at best. Translation. Oh, fuck. You guys can't see. Okay, I'm going back. Well, we'll pamper or tamper. We'll pamp it for you guys. All right. We're going back, chat. We're going back. Okay. The court is seriously concerned, and the judge said basically, you're not allowed to leak anything into the press. You're not allowed to file things wholesale. If you need to cite things, you will cite to them, and then that will become part of the court record. But nevertheless, plaintiff's counsel filed the deposition in its entirety, despite the discovery order. So the judge put out an order, and he said, it's not your fault again. I saw it. I stopped, and I'm changing it. This is an order from the court. This is an order that after this got leaked. So here's the deal. Laura Loomer's attorney published the deposition in its entirety on Pacer. Everybody downloaded it. The court put out an order saying, fucking take it down. What's wrong with you? I told you not to do that. It's too late now. It's out there. And this is the judge screaming at Laura Loomer's attorney. Remember, she's the plaintiff. So I hope that answers your question there, Coke Fairy. This is a judge's order here. So the plaintiff's contention the transcript is necessary seems disingenuous at best. The deposition transcript is wholly unrelated to the propriety of the entry of a protective order. And that's true. The protective orders are to govern the exchange of discovery materials. It has no bearing on the judge ruling on this. It has no bearing on her failure to provide sufficient responses. And while plaintiff quoted a limited excerpt from Miss Loomer's deposition transcript and the objections, filing the deposition in the entirety was unreasonable and necessary. So if you have to do it, you include the little bit. The littlest bit. But instead, he did it all. Accordingly, the court's left with the impression this was filed in efforts to work around the current orders. So the defendant's motion to seal is granted, and the clerk shall seal Laura Loomer's deposition transcript. These transcripts shall remain sealed pending further order of the court. The plaintiff shall not publicly file in the docket any further deposition transcripts. Moreover, the plaintiff and her counsel shall show cause within 10 days of this order why sanctions should not be imposed against them for their failure to comply with the court's orders. So Laura Loomer might already be fucked. They fucked around here. And I don't feel bad for her. So we're going to see something we're not supposed to see, but it's already out there. So it's not our fault. We're allowed to look at this, okay? We are allowed to look at this. And this is the deposition itself. Now, it was videotaped as well. Because they could afford this stuff at the big timer levels. So that's what you have. But you have Laura Loomer versus Bill Maher. It's from June 4th of 2025. And it got filed on July 31st. So it got out for a little while and people didn't see it right away. But it popped up. So where is it at? Well, it's from, you do it normally at a attorney's office. So Davis Wright and Tremaine, LLP, in Washington, D.C., on K Street, where all the lobbyists are. Maddie says, this in federal court? Yes, it's the district court for the Middle District of Florida. Yes, it's in federal court. So there are pages 112 to 14, 117, 178 to 80, and 481 to 487 are confidential. So you guys can see here, this is where you see the page numbers for the deposition. Like the court reporters pages, that's how you get them. And before we've watched depositions where you have like four of them on a sheet of paper. We don't have that here, but notice this is saying 487 pages. Well, up here at the top, we have 228. We're not going to go through all 228 tonight. We're going to go through a bunch of them, though. So why are we there? So anyways, you see her attorney is Larry Klayman. And then Bill Maher and HBO, because they have basically the same defense. And I assume HBO is paying for this, is Catherine Bolger from Davis Wright and Tremaine. And they're out of New York City. And these guys are out of Beverly Hills, California. They're in LA. So they say their appearances and they talk about everybody that's here, all the parties that are involved. Even the guy who's videographing, he's present. You have to include all these people. You have to include all this stuff. So there's a bunch of exhibits that get included here. We're not really worried about the exhibits. There's a bunch of shit. It doesn't matter. So the videographer, and this is how it works. If you have a videographer, they say, good morning. We're going to record the video on June 4th. The video monitor, it's 10:11 a.m. This is media unit number 1 of the recorded deposition of Laura Loomer. And this is what he has to say all this. Because he's like the independent party doing all of this. I've been hired to do this. My name's David Campbell, representing Veritext. I'm the videographer. The court reporter today is Samuel Patchon, also at Veritext. And it says, counsel, will you identify yourselves for the record, after which the reporter will please swear in the witness. So they announce who they are. And they say that they also, they also have the in-house counsel for HBO is there as well. So Laura Loomer gets sweared in. And then there's they talk about this thing here of income tax materials. They're like, we're not claiming confidentiality. It's like, why would you not protect that? That's confidential, shouldn't be released. But anyways, this is where it gets good. There's a bunch of spots we'll jump around. Yes, Ceciliaisms. Yes, this is a private company. You don't, if you can, you hire someone else, because if you have to use the court reporter, they're not going to be available. They're going to be in court working. So yes, I mean, that's in big cities like LA, DC, New York City. There are, even in Cleveland here, there are entire companies of like 10, 15 court reporters, and they go out, they take depositions. If the court needs a court reporter because like their court reporter got sick or whatever, that happens. I know in a court I was dealing with for a while, the court reporter broke her arm, like really bad. And she had to have her arm like stuck up like this. So she only had one hand and she couldn't type that fast. She had to learn, and it took her like a couple of weeks to get going. But yeah, they had to bring in somebody to help cover that. But these are not court reporters like that, but they are certified. They take standards. They are trained. They have to test, and they are considered certified court reporters. So they are not just random yahoos. They are court reporters. They have been through their training. They have been certified for what they do. And also, more importantly, at a deposition, you can you get the right to examine the transcript to make sure it's accurate. P-Dub says, did the Cubs draft a court reporter who broke her arm? No. I get that joke too. So that's a very good question, though. That was a very, very good question. They're not random yahoos like us, correct? Yes, it's kind of like a lot of those. It's like a trade right now. It's a dying trade. But yes, for right now, probably for the next 50 years, because AI is not going to be 100% reliable. But there's a lot of money to be made in court reporting. So let's get started here. So she says, she introduces herself, and I represent the defendants. In this case, she says, have you ever been deposed before? Laura Loomer's answer, yes. When were you deposed? I believe it was last year, and it was for a malpractice case. And she said, I filed a malpractice case. And it's like, who did you file it against? Against a former lawyer, Ron Coleman, who at one point represented me in a lawsuit I filed against CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, who is basically a front for the Iranian government. Yeah. So, and imagine how Ron Coleman had to put up with her ass. And, my hat's off to Ron Coleman for trying to deal with her, because I don't know if I could even do that. I don't know if I could represent her without wanting to punch her in the face. And she says, what's the status? She says, I believe it was a few days ago their motion to dismiss was struck down, and it's going to trial. And they say, have you been deposed in any other litigation? She says, no. So, and why do they do that? They ask you just so they can understand what's going to go on here. I ask you questions, you give me answers. We don't try to talk over each other. And if you can use oral responses rather than nodding your head or shaking your head, that's easier for the court reporter to take down, because he can't see what this is. And it's easier to say yes or no than shakes head, nods head. And this is one I always have to do. I tend to talk quickly. And I say this, if I'm going too quick, just say to me, hey, you're going too fast. If you're confused by a question, you can ask me and I'll restate it. And that's also true as well. Marky Mark says, you had no idea she existed. Well, you are better off, because I've known she's been around for like 10 years. I've known about her since before Trump was running for president. And then she points out that your attorney may object. That means he doesn't like the form of the question, or he has some problem with the question. But you still can answer unless he tells you not to. And that's how that works. Objection, the party could object. Cool. Answer the question. And then the judge rules on it later, and then you get whether it exists or not. And then every once in a while, if it's like, no, we are not going to move on, you have to call the judge. And you basically, it's like going to the teacher and say, hey, judge, we have a problem here. Judges get fucking pissed when you have to do this, but it's part of the thing. And it's like, no, they're like, sometimes they say, figure it out, or sometimes they'll make a ruling right there. Is it protected or not? So this is where it gets interesting. Did you do anything for this deposition? And she says, I reviewed the lawsuit, revealed all the filings, and had conversations with my lawyer. She talks about, I met with my lawyer. We met for a couple hours. And she says, it's probably like what breaks, when everything involved, my lawyer and my other litigation as well. I'd say probably about 5 hours. And she says, yeah, did you look at documents? Yes, I reviewed the complaint. Hey, Sid, did you talk to anyone else about this deposition today? And this is actually kind of a funny answer here. I mean, it's public, right? So people know that I have a deposition today. But I only spoke to my attorneys about the deposition. But it's public. It's in the media. It's been widely criticized. This is where you want to see a Laura Loomer get felted? Here you go, chat. Here you go. Watch Laura Loomer get felted. Oh, she's going to get nobodied here in a second. By whom was widely publicized? And Laura Loomer's like, the media. People know there's a deposition. It's a high-profile case. Is it really? And I also, given the fact that, I am a journalist, and this takes me away from my work as a journalist, I let everybody know that I would be offline today because I have a deposition. And how did you let everybody know? She's like, on my Twitter account. And she says, you didn't answer my question, which is, did you talk to anyone else about this deposition? So would you answer that question? Now, this was objection to form. So she says, have you had any conversations with anyone else about the deposition? And notice he says again, objection relevancy. And she looks at him and says, that's not a valid objection. You may answer. And that's what happens. Objection, don't care, answer the question. That's how this works. I think if you guys have ever watched, I don't know if they had Suits, they ever did depositions like this, but this is what happens. Objection. Cool. Your objection is known for the record. Answer the question, please. And he says, well, that's not for you to decide. I mean, kind of. At the time, it is. And then Laura Loomer says, I've only spoken to my attorney about the deposition. But as I said before, I'm followed by millions of people online. And there are many people, millions of people, who know that I have this deposition today. I didn't know. I didn't know. Nope. Cecilia was saying, so opposing counsel determines what is not a valid objection? No. In a deposition, you just answer all the questions because you're not in court. If you were in court, the judge could rule on everything. But the way a deposition works is you would make your objections on the record, then the court rules on them later. So then things get deleted, things get removed. That's how those objections work. So it's not that the opposing counsel gets to decide. The opposing counsel is just going to ask questions as though they never existed. Now, if it gets to be too much, Laura's attorney could say, no, I want the judge to make a ruling right now. But overall, your questions have to be answered. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, there's no judge there. So you're by yourself in a lawyer's office. And the reason why you're doing the deposition is because the court doesn't want to waste its fucking time. The court doesn't give a shit what you guys are doing. So this is why the court tells you, go fuck off and do this on your own. So that's how it works. Yes, when lawyers go off record, it's because they're generally getting the judge on the phone. Yeah. And judges hate it. I've been in deposition before where we call the judge. I've been the guy asking the questions and saying, Judge, teacher, he won't answer my questions. But I've been on the other side saying, teacher, he's asking a meanie question. Don't let him. And the judge just sits there and goes, fuck. It sounds like Laura's attorney is unfamiliar with the procedure here. No, you object anyway. Part of objecting is you're fighting the other attorney. Like, we're going to get into this in a second. These guys, Clayman and Bulger, are fighting each other. He's 100% familiar with it. You still object. You still act like these guys are like big-time attorneys. You act like in a case like this, you're acting like fucking dickheads off the bat. It's not the kind of thing that happens like in a normal case, like normal attorneys in the rest of America. This type of stuff here, lol cows have lol cow attorneys. So, is this why they always object to form? Well, you object to form, you object to relevancy, you object to privilege. There's all kinds of things you're going to object to. But yeah, you always, like this is his job, is to be a dick and obstruct her within reason. So, do judges yell? But no, you can tell they're absolutely upset. They are absolutely upset when you have to call. They're like, Jesus Christ. Like, I've been in court before where the judge has to get pulled away to deal with the deposition. And I was like, it was like by the time I got there, this was like the second or third time that day he had to deal with it. And he was very upset. So, I hope that makes sense there. Yeah. And ultimately, you know, she could say it's not a valid objection, but like I said, everything gets answered unless you're willing to die on that hill. But you make your objections regardless. You protect your record. So she says, I've been followed by millions of people. Millions of people know I have this deposition today. No, they didn't. I didn't know about it. Nobody cared. And she says, well, you were at the White House yesterday, right? And she says, yes. Who'd you speak to? I had a meeting with JD Vance. No, JD, no. The amount of Israelites that whisper into their ears is scary to me. Did you speak to anybody else at the White House? Just his security and his staff. Did you mention to JD Vance you're being deposed today and he wants to get objection? And she says, I'm not going to discuss my conversations. I mean, she might be able to try to assert executive privilege there. I don't know. But I think it's inappropriate to discuss my conversations. But I like how she says it's inappropriate to discuss them. I'm not going to discuss them. But no, I did not talk about my deposition. So you're already saying you didn't do it. You're already discussing the contents of your conversations. Did you talk about this lawsuit with JD Vance yesterday? No, I did not. Did you talk about my law firm with JD Vance? No, I did not. Did you talk about anybody in security about this deposition? Bella is worried about Jews, but not Palantir. Maybe I'm worried about both. Maybe they're both a concern. Maybe they're concerns for different reasons. If you don't think Laura Loomer is a dangerous person to have whispering in the ear of any politician, I don't know what to tell you. But maybe we can have, maybe we recognize multiple threats to us. So, did you talk to anybody about the deposition? No. And, you know, at some point you could say same continuing objection or relevancy. Did you talk to anybody in JD's staff about the lawsuit? She says, no, I did not. But obviously, because this is a widely publicized case, it's not really. That the media has reported on, given your client's defamation of me and the fact he is a well-known Trump hater, it is well known this lawsuit's ongoing. It's not really. It's not really. And so it's not unreasonable that many of the people, including, you know, members of the White House, are probably aware. See, I love this. They definitely know I'm important. They know about me. What's your basis for believing the members of the White House are aware of the suit? Because it's been reported by many media outlets. This is where she's getting felted here. How does the White House know? Oh, I'm sure they've watched TV. Which TV? And, you know, it's almost like she really needs to say, well, nobody actually knows. Brr. This is where it gets good. She's just having to admit, like, nobody knows. Have you spoken to anybody in the White House? No. Have you spoken to any staff? Not about this lawsuit. But again, staff of the White House are aware the lawsuit is ongoing. And they say, how do you know that? Because it directly relates to President Trump. And I'm so confident that his staff would be aware of a high-profile lawsuit involving one of his biggest critics who falsely accused me of having sex with the president, which is also falsely accusing the president of committing adultery against his wife, which he has done. Our first lady, yes, he has whored around. So I'm confused. She said, and so the attorney's like, I'm confused. You're certain the White House is aware of this, but you claim you haven't spoke to anybody else. Did you speak to anybody at the White House staff? And she says, well, it's mine. And here's where we get to the attorneys fighting. He says, objection, objection, wait. And she says, I'm not done asking my question, which is a fair thing. Let me finish before you object. And he says, all right, it's just wait, wait, wait. I'm not done asking my question. I get to ask my question. And this is where, like, she's trying to bully him before he could get his answer out. There's more than one question. It's compound. So notice she doesn't say anything there because she realized it was compound. Two questions in one thing. You can't do that. She says, I'm confused. What you are testifying is that you don't think you've spoken to anybody about this, but you're sure they're aware. That's fucking absolutely demolishing. And Laura says, my best belief. She said, I'm asking you. It's my best belief. Miss Loomer. And she says, I'm answering your question. No, you're not. She says, it's my best belief that people. And then it says, Miss Loomer, the way this is going to work going forward is, and this is where the reporter says, slow down, you guys. You're talking over each other. And she said, then I'm going to ask a question. You're going to wait for me to finish it. And she says, I'm going to hear your answer. She says, yeah, that's how this works. And she says, I answered your question. You don't like my answer. She says, so I'm going to do it again. And you're going to respond and say, go ahead. And this is where, notice, and I request, and she immediately goes into, you have testified. She just fucking cuts him off. These attorneys are combative. And, you know, he's like, and I request, and she goes, you have testified. Like, she just fucking kills him off. And you have to do this sometimes. Not at my level, but I've seen this stuff before. She says, you didn't talk to anybody in the White House, but you certainly know about it. How do you reconcile those two things if you haven't spoken to anybody about the case? And this is where the attorney brings up again, okay, that's 4 questions. And please don't badger my witness. You're being very aggressive, more than aggressive. You know, frankly disrespectful. And she just ignores him and says, Miss Loomer, please answer my question. And she says, I suppose I can't read their mind, but, you know, given the fact that the president has a, very active communications team that monitors all news headlines about Trump, it's my best belief that they are aware of the fact this lawsuit is ongoing. And they are likely aware of this deposition today. I mean, it's been widely reported. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't, Laura. Yes, I'm trying to remember who the hell Laura Loomer is. And she said, I posted on my social media, and most of the president's staff follow me on social media. You said this deposition is well publicized. It was well publicized by you, correct? And she says, I have a right to defend myself. I have a right to fight back against Bill Maher's sexist, misogynistic, and malicious comments about me that are obviously defamatory. He accused me of having sex with the president. As a result, I've been subjected to a lot of harassment. It threatens my safety. And so, yes, I publicize the fact that I'm suing Bill Maher as enabler HBO. I have a right to do that. And it's you publicized it on X. She's like, yep, I did. Did you use Give, Send, Go? And she says, of course, I'm not a millionaire like Bill Maher. Also, I'm not worth billions like HBO. My tax records prove that, which you have. Those are confidential, of course. And I'm not rich. I'm not ashamed that I'm not rich. I'm not a wealthy woman, and I have a lot of supporters. I know, and people know in this country that there's lawfare. Weaponized lawfare is what your firm specializes in, and it's true. These guys, this firm does, they're one of the heavy hitters. They're like Perkins Coie. They're like, what's the other one? The one that was representing Hunter Biden. There are a couple of them that come out there and do hatchet man work for the left. You represent the biggest Trump haters. You recently had, you guys, and she says you, meaning the firm, represented George Stephanopoulos in a defamation case. You falsely accused the president of being a rapist, I believe, right? That's your firm. And she says, me? And she says, well, your firm represented Stephanopoulos, and you guys had to give the president $15 million to his library because you advertise that you guys, that your law firm solicits Trump haters and Democrats who spread lies about the president, including the Steele dossier, which is a lie. Paid for by Trump's opposition, lies that he's a rapist. You represent CNN, which has also had spread lies about the president, lies about me. And of course, I have the right to defend myself. And I have every right to post a link to my Give, Send, Go to ask supporters to help me cover the cost. And I love how this woman, without breaking stride, says, so, Miss Loomer, my question that got that speech, was actually, did you post a Give Send Go link, which is a yes or no question. Yes, I posted it. So it's fine that you get to answer the question however you want, but just so you know, if you continue to answer the questions in that way and time again, I will be bringing you back for a second day of deposition. And her attorney tries to pop up and she says, because this wastes my time. And that's not for you to decide. And that's correct. She has to motion the court for more time to depose, and it's up to the court to decide. And then Laura Loomer just goes, you have 7 hours. And then Bulger says, what is your email? And Laura Loomer goes, you have 7 hours. And then her attorney goes, stop for a second. And then he's like, you know what? And she's like, stop for a second. He says, I want to object to badgering the witness. And the attorney's like, okay. To the arrogance and belligerency here. And the attorney is answering it correctly. There's no pending question. There's no pending question. There's no pending question. And he goes on his tirade. You do not have the right to make a decision whether or not she comes back. And that's true. But she also answers, there's no pending question. And then claimant says, the judge will. Yes, and I'm asking you. And she just fucking ignores him again. What is your email address? And he's like, I'm asking. Wait a second. I'm not done. No. She's just like, oh, that's cool, Chief. Anyways, what's your email address? And she says, what is yours? And she says, yes, you are. He says, I'm asking you. And she goes on, what is your email address, Miss Loomer? And she says, I'm not done. And she keeps on going, saying, what is your email address, Laura Loomer? That is fucking awesome. There wasn't a pending objection at this point. It's just she's ignoring him. She's moving forward because his objections have to be related to a pending question. If he wants to object to her conduct, he could say that, but generally you have to wait till the end and motion for sanctions. But at this point, asking for the email, yeah, like, just clarify, like, you don't need to clarify in the record that the judge decides whether or not you get an extra day. Like, this part here is unnecessary. But like if she kept on misstating the rules of procedure, you might be able to have her just on the record. I would say counsel for the defendant is, oh, you're saying there was a pending question? Yeah, but I mean, if you get up to here, she already said you have 7 hours. So she already answered. It's not a pending question anymore. It's not a pending question. So she answered. It's been asked. The pending question is no longer there. Even the defense attorney agrees. She answered my question. It's not a pending question anymore. So this keeps on going. It's, what's your email? She said, well, I'm not going to dox myself. No, after that, the pending question was about her email. No, here. What is your email? You have 7 hours. This is the first time it happens. The email. She doesn't ask it again until, you notice the question's been answered. Right here, this question has been answered. It's done. There's no pending question. The next time there's a pending question is right here. That's the next pending question. So notice it's already been answered. So there is Q and there's A. Correct. Done. The next time there's a question is down here. So there's no more of this, there's a pending question thing. Right here in the middle, there is no pending question. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Do you guys understand why that's an issue? Because technically this is correct. There is no pending question right here. There is no pending, this whole thing right here has no pending question. Like, you guys, there's no pending question in this spot. Because that's where he's saying the pending, like, there's nothing there. I understand, Libby. She says, what is your email address? I get it. Right here, she says, what is your email address? And what does Laura say? You have 7 hours. That's an answer. That's an answer. It's not a sufficient answer, and she can ask the question again, but that's the answer. So, and I'm not trying to argue. I'm just making sure you guys understand what they're doing. Libby says that's not an answer to the question. Yes, it is. It might be unintelligible and it might not be non-responsive, but it's an answer. What's your email address? I like pancakes. Question has been answered. There's no pending question. I have to ask another one. So they move on from there, and she says, I don't want to dox myself. I don't want to dox myself. It's like, oh, bullshit, you wouldn't. You like doxing yourself. You love attention, Laura Loomer. And she has to be, there's some kind of protection so that I don't get publicly harassed. Your lawyer gave a whole speech about how this was going to be public, but if you like, I agree to keep this confidential. I object. There's no pending question. Tech guy still says, that's retarded, man. You know what? People are like, God, lawyers do this autistic word game bullshit. I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. It's pedantic. It's what we do. So they keep on going. What's your email address? And he says, wait a second here. I will give that to you. And they say, there's no reason she can't answer the question. I'll keep it confidential. What's your email address? And he says, no, I'm not going to put it on the public record here. We'll have a, she says, I agree with you. This doesn't have to go on the record. And he says, we'll have a separate record. We'll have a separate record, okay? And she says, doesn't have to go on the public record. And they're saying, what's your email address? And he says, not here. We're going to have a separate. She's like, no. Now notice, and this already here shows you this whole conversation, Clayman was going to release this shit, and he knew it from the start. He knew from the start he was going to release this shit. He knew from the start he was going to release this shit. That's why he didn't want it included. He wanted it protected. And she says no. And she says, you're answering the question. And she said, Mama. And he's like, no, don't answer. Don't answer, okay? Don't answer. I've had to do this before. Not very often, you know, I mean, you better have a good fucking reason if you're doing it. You better have a good reason if you're going to do this. Oh, did somebody email me or message me? I can't tell. It says, you know, I'm sorry, you're instructing the witness to not answer. And he says, that is correct. The question is, what is your email address? And he says, correct. He says, after I agreed to keep it confidential, he's saying no. What I said was no. What I said was, and she's like, I've agreed to keep it confidential. Miss Loomer, please. And he says, let me talk, Miss Bolger. And she says, what is your email address? And this is what you do if the other side, you just keep fucking going. This is how you do a deposition. I am not that good at depositions. I don't do a ton of civil stuff, but like Peter Tragos, I guarantee you, him in a deposition, this is what he sounds like. Attorney Tom, when they're doing their depos, because those guys do depos all damn day long. Just boom, 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 boom. Just hitting it. Just once again, bam, what's the email address? Bam, 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 bam. And he says, let me talk, all right? Don't be rude to me like you were in the last deposition. And she's like, don't yell at me. He says, I'm not yelling at you. You're yelling at my client. And she says, don't yell at me. It says, you can ask you can ask all those questions. That will be a separate record. You can ask. Just keep them. And we'll answer those questions. And she says, I want the answer now. He says, and we'll keep a confidential record. And she says, it's confidential. Once again, remember, this was supposed to be filed under seal. And he says, you're not going to mess up this record? This is intense. This is intense, chat. I would have loved to have seen this in person. Well, what would happen here? Yes, it is in fact you that is yelling, counsel. That's why you have to be careful against female attorneys, because they all do that. All of a sudden, if they start like, you're yelling at me, it's like, fuck. They can pull that card out. When it's men, it doesn't matter. All this over email for right now. We got more to go. We got more to go, chat. They both sound insufferable. Well, yeah, they're attorneys. They're attorneys. We're cocksuckers to deal with. No offense. Ashley says I paused. I'm 45 minutes behind. Rocco Rockwell saying, is this in a courtroom or is this at a conference room? No, this is at an attorney's office. This is at the attorneys for Bill Maher. You generally don't do depositions at a courthouse. The only time you do depositions in a courthouse is generally when you guys can't get along and the judge has to sit there. And if the judge has to sit in your deposition, it has absolutely fallen the fuck apart. I have never had that happen before. I don't ever want to be in that situation. But I do know of attorneys. They've had to have depositions where like the magistrate sat there and babysat everybody. But no, generally when you're doing a deposition, you're doing it off campus. You're generally at one attorney's law office or another, or you rent a room. Like if it's an out-of-town attorney coming in, you might rent a room somewhere like Regis or those different, you can rent conference rooms for a day. That's a lot of ways you do it. Yes, they both have alternative motives. Yeah, they've dealt with each other before. See this? They talk about like, don't be rude to me like you were in the last deposition. These guys have history. And that's a thing that happens too. These attorneys have histories. And when you represent enough of the big parties, this happens. You clash and contract. Lolo Holmes says the depot of Peter Tragos would be so hot. He is one hot Greek. He's fire. I guess if you get, I appreciate Peter's legal talent and his commentary. And I appreciate the way he can actually, generate views and subs. Wish I could figure it out like he does. But other than that, I'm not really, he's got swarthy Mediterranean hair, but, so do I. I just don't grow it out. The judges must hate the lawyers after having to sit in a deposition. They absolutely fucking hate it because that ruins their day. They generally have to clear out their schedule. And then notice Miss Bolger goes on again. What's your email address? And he's like, no, do not answer. Do not answer. And Mr. Clayman, you're instructing the witness. And he's like, no, not to answer what her email address is. And he said, I said to you, I don't want apples and oranges here. We can go in a separate record. And notice, once again, this is clearly showing he was going to leak this shit. Or Laura wanted to leak this shit. Gryffindor says, move it along. No, sometimes this is about fucking gunning there. You're gunning at the other side. You stay here. You don't move along. If you're fighting like this, you don't give up. This is all about dominance right now. Hold on one second. Please hold, chat. All right, chat, we're back. Sorry. I'm thinking of subs, yeah. The tribe got to Sean. No, it was 2.0 sent me something. I need elevator music, yeah. Well, it's not a very good use of her time. Yeah, well, remember, part of this is they're probably going to win, and part of this is you're fucking with the other side. And maybe they'll get more, like, if he's obstructing this, she'll probably get more time to depose her, depending on how bad this goes. Remember, she's got 7 hours, so she can get to what she needs to get to. Now, and this is correct. Miss Bolger's correct. When you are the one doing the deposition, it's your record. It's your deposition. So he can object to things, but he doesn't get to control it. If he wants a deposition, he can do his own deposition. And he says, you don't get to decide this. This is my record. He can ask to, examine Laura later. So why do they want the email? Because they probably have information of her doing stuff. I'm assuming that there's a reason why they want it. They probably have her doing something or saying something. Who really knows? That's why they're asking for it. So to help clarify things in discovery. So it says, what is your email address? He's like, no, don't answer. And she says, okay, I'll take that to the judge. And he says, please do. And she says, and notice, here's where you go, chat. Like I said, I have not read all this. I've only seen the clips on Twitter. Is it your general practice to be truthful when you send emails? And she says, yes. What is your telephone number? And he says, same thing. That will be on a separate record if you want to ask. And she says, it will not. This is my deposition. And she's right. She could say, we're putting it all on here. It's all getting filed under seal. And then if it wants to get released, those things get redacted. And he says, once again, all right, don't answer that. And then she says, I'll tell the judge that you will not allow me to get this basic information on a plaintiff who chose to bring a lawsuit in federal court, and that you have been grandstanding about how this is public, Mr. Klayman. Notice, in that, once again, she's calling him out. You keep saying this is public. Well, let's be fucking public. So once again, this is why they're asking, because they probably have proof of her being untruthful in the emails. That's why they're asking this, chat, right there. Marky Mark says, are you wasting our time that aren't answering it? They are answering a lot of things. They're answering a lot of things. Believe it or not. So she goes on going, and, he's like, that will be a lie. We said we'll go in a separate record. She says, we'll break it up. And she just moves on. Do you send text messages? And he says, stop. We'll go on a separate record. See, I don't think that he should right there. Well, yeah, do you send text messages? Do you send text messages? Notice he lets her keep going. He doesn't stop her here. And she says, yes, I text. Do you use your phone? Yes. Do you use Facebook Messenger? No, I don't have an account. Is that because you were banned? Yes. Do you use Signal? And she says, well, I'm a journalist occasionally. Says, do you use WhatsApp? Occasionally. Notice they're trying to make sure they have all of her, because they've asked probably for all her social media and all her text messages. And she says, do you instant message people on Twitter? And she's like, it's called a DM, but yes. And then they say, how often do you communicate with President Trump? Sometimes some of his staff will relay messages. And it says, how do they relay messages? She says, they'll call me. Sometimes there have been several times the president has called me from the phone of his staff. And he has had his staff call me. The president does not use email. I do not email the president. Do you text him? I text with his staff. What app do you use? I use a regular text. It says, how many times have you spoken with Trump on the phone? Numerous times. And her attorney says indefinite is the time. Objection. That's not really a good objection here. So it says, how many times have you spoken to the president on the phone? She's like, I don't know. I mean, I've known the president for several years, so I would say, several times. And he says, objection to relevancy, continuing objections as well. And she says, many times. And many times. And she's like, what is many times? Would you say more than 100? She's like, no. Would you say more than 50? And once again, he's objecting to relevancy. She's like, no, not more than 50. And they're saying, like, about 50? And she says, perhaps, but definitely not more than that. Like I said, I communicate mostly with the staff, or have it's mostly staff. And they're saying, so you said that and I just want to make sure I get this right, You said that sometimes the staff calls you and sometimes the president calls you through his staff. And she says, yeah, because it's the president of the United States, just going to be, calling people. It says, like, communications are protected when you're the president. So for national security purposes, for, the purposes of protecting people's communication devices. And so, the way it works is if somebody calls you, generally, they call on, like, a staff phone or a designated phone, and it's the president. That is the dumbest fucking way she's ever phrased anything. So you said you've spoken to the president about 50 times. Is that separate from conversations you've had with the president's staff? And this is fair. Objection. The testimony speaks for itself, basically. And she says, I didn't finish my question. That sounds like you finished your question. And she says, that normally you've spoken about 50 times. And she says, I wouldn't say it's been 50 direct conversations with the president. You asked if how many of those communications take place, and they take place through the staff. So it's a combination. And she says, how many times have you texted the president's staff? Probably the same amount. So 50 times, which that's a lot, actually, when you think about it. So she says, I've been involved in conservative media and conservative politics for about 12 years. And that's the thing, chat. I caught on to her in 2015. Like, I learned of her, and it's like, God, she's fucking awful. And so I've known a lot of his staff for a very long time. What social media accounts do you use? And she says, well, it's been widely publicized. I've been banned on social media for speaking the truth. Everybody knows there's coordinated censorship against the president and his supporters. Well, not anymore, but yes, there was. Yes, there was. And she says, this has been documented in hearings and lawsuits, true. Testimonial by social media execs who admitted to the FBI they worked to interfere in the election. And so I've been reinstated to Twitter thanks to Elon Musk. I use X. I use True Social. Occasionally I use Telegram. Telegram's compromised, guys. Don't use it. Gab. And I have a Getter account. God, you remember Getter? Where's Parler? She doesn't have a Parler account. She's not a real patriot. She's not a real patriot, chat. And she said, I recently just tested the waters to see if Facebook was serious about being against censorship. To try to create another Instagram account. She says, I don't use it. I mostly use it for research. Yep. What's your handle on Twitter? And she says, well, I have several. I have Laura Loomer. I have Loomer Unleashed. I have Loomered Strat. And notice how cringe this is. Can you spell that? Loomered Strat. Spell it, please. Loomerdstrat. And it's for a company I recently launched called Loomer Strategies. Oh my God. It's a company I created for the sake of doing like opposition research and vetting. Who are you doing vetting for? Whoever needs opposition research. What's your True Social handle, Laura Loomer? What's your Gab handle, Laura Loomer? What's your Getter handle, Laura Loomer? What's your Telegram? It's at Loomer or Laura Loomer. But it's either my name, real Laura Loomer, or at Loomer if you ever want to find her on those things. And they say, whose decision was it to bring this? It was my decision to file this lawsuit. Now, obviously, they say, did you speak to anybody before you filed? And this is something you always bring up. Did you speak to anybody before you did this lawsuit? And she says, how did you find your attorney? I've known my attorney for several years. He's been my lawyer, at least one of my lawyers, since 2018. Where did you all meet? In Nevada in 2017. She says, I'm a journalist and I was investigating the Las Vegas shooting, which was a shooting that took place at a music festival. And I had broken a lot of stories. And I was out there for several months investigating irregularities. And Mr. Clayman was there having press conferences with one of his former clients, Clive and Bundy. Guys, remember the Bundy Ranch? They are the guys who stood off with BLM. They were the ranchers dealing with their cows being taken, their cattle being taken, and they had the BLM leases. And I know a lot of, there's some shit about what they were doing or what they weren't doing right. And then Bundy's sons ended up getting arrested and then getting acquitted of some charges and then getting arrested again and then eventually getting pardoned. There's all kinds of shit out there with the Bundys. And I showed up to the press conference. I met them and exchanged information with them. And I got in touch with them when I was banned from Twitter. He represented me in filing an antitrust case against several social media companies that banned me. And what was the result of the case? It went all the way to the Supreme Court. What that means is she lost at the trial level. She appealed to the appellate court. The appellate court said, lol, no. And then she asked the Supreme Court to look at it, and they didn't take the case. So, but Justice Thomas issued an opinion saying the case was very well thought out, and that it raised relevant arguments about the influence of social media companies as state actors. And they're saying, so what was his dissent, right? Yes, it's because you lost in the Supreme Court, right? Owned. Oh no. Oh no, chat. And they decided not to take up the case, right? You lost to the appellate level beneath, right? And he says objection relevancy. And she keeps just on going. I guess so. And this is how it should work. You do an objection, you just keep going. And you lost in the trial court too, right? Once again, you object and you just keep going. Oh, there was no trial because she lost at summary judgment. And Job Well Done says after that guy got shot in Oregon, Lavoy Finicum is who you're thinking of. Yes, murdered by the Oregon State Police. But it doesn't mean it doesn't. They just going back and forth here. I want to say, and she says, yes, there's no pending question. You may not speak. And that's how you handle this. And that's how you handle your opposing party in a deposition. There's no pending question, man. Please don't speak. And claimant says she's allowed to, and she says, may I have? And says, you give your answer. It's like, she's not allowed to. He says, no, you know you. And it says, you may ask her a follow-up. And that's true. He can ask a follow-up question later. And he says, you're allowed to. He's like, no. And yes, she may not speak randomly on the record. That is 100% correct. Can't just fucking talk. And he says, you don't make the rules. And she says, I'm asking the questions here. She says, well, I'm answering the questions. And she just moves on. She says, can I ask you to please mark Exhibit 1? And he's like, you don't make the rules. It says, answer what you want to say. And this is where she's trying to admonish opposing counsel. And Laura Loomer goes again, just because I lost a case doesn't mean that it wasn't relevant. And I was ahead of the curve, as I usually am. And it was noted during congressional hearings that these companies were behaving like state actors and Joe Biden. And so our belief that the case, had been revived in front of the court was released under oath in front of Congress. And there would have been a different outcome. She says, it was a pioneering case. I was the canary in the coal mine. And this is where it gets really, in this chat, now we're going to get into the gay shit. This is where it gets really good. Listen to Laura Loomer just talk herself up here. And in reality, it paved the way for other free speech warriors like myself. And people have been demonized by President Trump. And she's like, excuse me, demonized because they're supporting President Trump. That was a Freudian slip. To file lawsuits against these media companies. And she says, okay, I'm going to have to strike that. And I'm going to take that time back because that was not responsive. And I'll add that time to my 7 hours. And that's, yeah. Yeah, I don't think she was ever asked to testify. And he says, well, you don't get to decide. She says, we're going to mark Exhibit 1. He says, listen, can you please stop being so arrogant and abrasive? And she just keeps on going about for documents and production. It's an RFP, a request for production. He says, okay, it's amazing how you. And she says, here you go, Mr. Clayton. He's like, don't throw things at me. No. She says, can you mark this? I'm sorry, I was trying to reach you. He says, no, that's intentional. Okay. She's like, it wasn't intentional. You treat both of us with. And she says, without respect, that's something which has not happened in this case. Oh. And she says, I've asked you to do Exhibit 1, which is the document requests that were propounded to you. She says, have you seen this document? And what did you search for in response to this? And he's like, vague and ambiguous. You might want to ask her more specifically. And that's actually fair, because that's not And she says, you can answer my question. He says, there were objections as well that should be noted. This does not reflect the objections. And notice here, she didn't say, and no, she goes on here, what did you do to search for documents responsive to this request? And he just lets her go from here. You have to work on your move brief. Well, good luck. And she said, well, my attorney said there are objections made regarding the relevancy to some of these overreaching requests, and I provided relevant documents. And okay, she's like, unlike Bill Maher. So what was the thing here? All documents and communications concerning the September 13th, 2024 episode of Real Time of Bill Maher. What did you do to search for those? And she says, well, you have the episode, and you have. And she says, I know, answer my question, which is, what did you do? And she said the episode on September 13th was aired by HBO. And it's not like I plan to wake up and see Bill Maher say I falsely accused me of having sex with Trump. And so I looked for the transcript and the video recording of the episode and the media publications in the aftermath of the airing of the episode. And she says, for number 5, where it says all documents and communications between you and President Trump, what did you do to search for those documents? And I would argue that's something you'd object to, because, what's the fucking relevance there? Not all documents relating to September 13th. And he says, well, there's an objection in the terms of overbreadth, relevancy, vague, and ambitious. And she says, you don't get to testify. So what did you do to search? And he says, no, but you're presuming facts. And there's nothing that are not in evidence. They're just going back and forth. You're presuming facts that are not in evidence. And she says, well, there was an objection. And I said, I'm a journalist, so there's a lot of, restrictions on what constitutes communications. And, the fact of the matter here is Bill Maher accused me of having sex with the president. So, there's no evidence that I had sex with Trump. I have never even been in the same room with Trump alone. Thank God. And why? And she's like, so you're saying you didn't search for those? And she said, I provided all the documents that were relevant, and I did search for the documents. And I provided everything necessary. I provided the letter I sent to his staff during the transition team. And it says, did you search your private communications with the Mr. Trump or his staff requested in the documents? And she says, I did. And they said, well, did you produce them? She's like, I turned over what I had that was not objected to my attorney to give to you. But again, there were objections. And she's saying, is it your testimony under oath that you've never exchanged any written communication with Trump or his team? And notice, this is a good objection. You've already asked and answered this. And also, just getting all the, notice, this is now they want those communications. See? Once again, it's kind of like Ethan Klein. Discovery is meant to go multiple ways. Notice they asked for all communications. That's not proper. You don't need every communication with Trump. You need ones relating to the Bill Maher comments. And they also said, you also got text messages, but those have nothing to do with it. She said, I didn't ask that. It has nothing to do with this case. And she says, wait, but you, and she says, and I'm a journalist, so you know. And once again, you didn't search for those. That's not true. She says, that's not true. They were. Oh, yeah. Why can't I go to depositions like this? Yes. Yes, they had group sex then. How is that an answer? Yes, you missed so much loomering. Yes. So they go through all of this here. They keep going here. You did not search for documents related to communication with Trump that you and your attorney decided weren't relevant. The attorney jumps in and says, but there were other aspects of the objection. That mistake. And she's saying, that's not true. There were objections. And right, you decided what your objections were, and then you didn't search for the documents. And that's up to the judge. Take it up with the judge. It's not my problem. But a lot of your requests, that's not true. A lot of your requests were harassing and overreaching. That's why my attorney objected to them, so you could take it up with the judge. Your client didn't even produce documents. Your client wants his entire deposition under seal because he doesn't want the world to see what a horrible, misogynistic, sexist person he is. He admitted that and notice she's just running over the attorney right now, that he had, and once again, Laura's attorney comes in and goes, wait, pulling a Drex. Wait, Sean. When I say that's not true, sound like Wallace Shawn. Well, I'm impersonating PPP, who's impersonating Ethan Ralph. That's not true. I also might be impersonating a little bit of Meme Copium as well, although him and me mess with each other there. And they say, Miss Loomer, that is confidential, and you know it's confidential. If you want to sit here and violate a court order, you go right ahead. She's like, I'm not violating a court order. She did not give any testimony about what he said. So anyways, did you search for all documents supporting the allegations that they severely harmed and damaged you? And she said, what documents did you produce? She said, I turned over my resume and I turned over my letter with the transition team. And obviously, I'm not working in the White House, so it has damaged me because I was expecting to work in the White House. That doesn't mean nothing. That doesn't mean nothing. I was expecting to work in the White House. Were you promised a gig and then they took it away because of this? No, I was promised to work there. That's not how that works. So she didn't actually have a job offer, and she doesn't have a rejection citing Bill Maher. You know, and she's like, you have those documents. You have those communications that has my email. So you already have my email. You know, like, so that's it. All you had was the only evidence, your reputation being damaged by the report was the one. And the attorney's like, that's misstating an application you made to the White House. She's like, I turned over tweets. She says, I turned over tweets. I turned over media reports that insinuated that I'm a whore. You are. It's like, I don't know who says this in Harry Potter, but it's, you're a whore, Laura. You're a wizard, Harry. I'm what? You're a whore, Laura. That I was having an affair with the president. I turned over a lot of news publications, including the additional episode that was published and aired by Bill Maher, which he tried to compound the damages that he did in episodes that were seen millions of times. Do you understand when we asked for all documents, we were asking for any all communications you had with anyone? And he says that misstates what you were asking for. You can refer to the specific request. And it says, no, she doesn't have to answer your question if it's improperly formed. And that is true. No, we have not gotten to the Graham statement yet. Those are coming up, chat. And we're getting to the good stuff here, chat. We're getting to the good stuff here. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, we're getting to the good stuff. We're getting to the good stuff here. Don't worry. And we'll skip ahead to the Lindsey Graham thing. And they say, Laura Loomer answered my questions. Says, I turned over documents. I talked to my attorney what was acceptable. If there's anything you find unacceptable, take it up with the judge. And that's kind of the way you handle it. Discovery issues. But you didn't search for documents you did not deem acceptable. Is that correct? It's like, I search for documents, but I'm not required to turn over things that are harassing in nature or overreaching. I have protections and I have rights, just like your client didn't turn over documents. They say, what do you do for a living, Laura? I'm a journalist. In fact, you describe yourself as an investigative journalist. She's like, yeah. And she says, I expose fraud, corruption, waste, and abuse. I investigate wrongdoing. I expose people. I expose people like many of your clients for their weaponization of government. I expose malicious law affair. I expose all types of corruption, which is why I've amassed a very large following online, because I've broken a lot of very big stories, exposing a lot of corruption. Yes, you think you hate journalists enough, but you don't. Yes, Orrin McIntyre is correct. And it says, do you follow a particular code of ethics during your investigative journalism? Vague and ambiguous. And she says, yeah, I report the truth. Have you ever heard of the SPJ code of ethics? And she says, yes, I know. And if you guys don't know what the SPJ is, the SPJ is the Society of Professional Journalists, which you're like, okay, yeah, these motherfuckers are not going to be, who are these people? Like, who are these people? Like when you think about who these people are, like, yes, it's like the AMS, the American Meteorological Society. They have their own things. They have chapters and they have journalists everywhere. This is just all cringe. So you could join. How much does it cost to join? So for 100 years, join as supporter for $21 a year. So yeah, just cringe. Yes, this is a classic movie. You get the deponent, you get the party to start boasting about what they are. Society protecting shoes. Yeah. Laura Loomer's more of an SCP kind of gal. Oh no. Oh no, that you take that back, sir. That is really mean. That is so mean. That is naughty, chat. That is so naughty. I apologize to SCP. They make better monsters than her. They make better monsters than her. SCP-04. It's going to be the one where they have the SALT teams go in. It's like the dollhouse one. Anyways, and she says, there are a lot of standards that are determined and defined by the mainstream media, and a lot of those are biased in nature. They lean heavily toward the left, and I'm also not naive. I understand there's a lot of biases perpetrated by the news, which you're familiar with. Obviously, your firm represented George Stephanopoulos, who had to settle with Trump for $15 million. And you make a lot of money representing the purveyors of fake news who clearly don't abide by the rules of journalistic ethics. So you should ask your own clients whether or not they understand. And notice Bolger is doing great. She's like, so again, my question, she says, maybe they wouldn't have had to settle with Trump for $15 million if your clients understood ethics. And this is how you keep your cool. It says Mr. Loomer, Miss Loomer. My question was, have you ever heard of the SPJ Code of Ethics? And you suddenly launch into a tirade, which you continually do. And she said, no. I said yes. And I'm just reminding you. Says, I said yes, but I'm also. And she said, no. She said, I said yes. And the reporter's like, chill the fuck out, guys. And she says, I said yes. But I'm also not going to be gaslit by a Democrat lawyer who represents fake media and given political donations to the Democrats. I've checked the FEC records because I'm a journalist. I know that you donated to the DCCC. You donate to Act Blue, and you represent Trump haters who haven't settled with Trump because they're purveyors of fake news. So I'm not going to be gaslit. I'll answer your questions, but I'm not going to be gaslit by a Democrat lawyer. And she's just, Miss Loomer, you don't get to yell at me. She's, I'm not. And you don't get to make this personal. I'm not yelling at you. And she's, because that's pathetic. Oh, that's not a good look as an attorney. She's kind of losing her cool. You don't, that's not a good look. And she's like, I'm not yelling at you. I am. Real quick here, I want to get these out of the way real quick. EDW Raptor for 5 subs. Rob Dorr, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Guys, remember Rob Dorr on the show as part of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus talking about what it's like to be a lobbyist. And I know there have been a bunch of Minnesota gun victories. We covered a couple. I do want to talk to you, see if you want to come on. We can talk about some of the other ones that are out there. And then that guy who got in trouble for having a gun that didn't have a serial number because it never had one. But anyways, yeah, friend of the show, Rob, I'm going to reach out to you, see if we can get together again here. But he says, lol, Loomer, yes, for 34 months. Thank you, Rob. And I think you're done with law school by now, too. Congrats. Dagamore has been a member for 11 months. Says screen. Thank you. Donka. And then Crystal Contact for 10 subs. Thank you, Crystal, for your support and your generosity. Remember, chat, when you donate subs, here's what you're doing to the Grays. That's what you're doing to every time. Gets us in a woo. Real cool. Ooh, uh-oh. I lost the thing here. Then Crystal, for 5 months, thank you for the support, says, now we get to blame Trump. Yes. Jeremiah says, Sean's hatred of Loomer, mostly I agree with. His commentary is cringe as fuck. Are you saying her? Do you mean her commentary or my commentary? Because I kind of, like, you're like, people are like, you're cringe when you do this. It's like, no shit, I am. And then Crystal, for 10 more subs. Thank you, Crystal. We're going to do that. Gets another. In fact, more woos. We're going to get 2. Thank you, Crystal, for your support and your generosity there. Helping pray the gray away. Special Silicone says, have you ever gone up against a big law? I haven't really interacted with a lot of big law attorneys. I haven't had any cases, nor like bigger firms, yes. But yes, they're not like the county prosecutors you go against. Yeah, I mean, like, well, yes, but these guys, yeah, this is just good deposition work. But that right there, she's kind of losing her cool, but she was doing very good against Laura for quite a while here. She was hanging in there. But now she kind of like, but overall, she's been hanging in there pretty good. But you can tell Bulger and Clayman have a past, and that's part of the issue. When you have a shitty relationship with an attorney, it's hard to bury that hatchet and get things done. But yeah, they're not like county prosecutors against. I 100% agree. I will probably never interact with Davis and with Davis Wright Tremaine. 100%, I'll probably never interact with them. Just like I'm never going to interact with fucking like Scadden Apps or fucking Jones Day, really. Like, yeah, there's like that's just not how that normally works for small time guys. So, but have they hate fucked? No, I don't think they have. And she says, I'm letting people know because this is probably going to trial. I'm letting people know that I understand ethics. But your clients, people who should know you represented on your law firm website, you say that are Trump's least favorite firm. And she's like, I don't say that. She's like, you make money and you monetize. You did. You have since deleted, right for the record, Davis Wright Tremaine has since deleted this article they had highlighted on their website from the Hollywood Reporter in March of 2009. And she says, we're going to start timing these. And that's true. Like, you're making us waste fucking time. This is where, depending on how long these eat up, she can ask for more time later. And she's like, that's fine. Go ahead. We have 7 hours. We're here all day. And she comes back. We're having a lot more, sister. You have to be careful how much snark you're giving and how much snark you're getting back there. You're not getting drawn in. I assume she's keeping her cool, but this easily could turn into her losing her own shit on Laura Loomer, which wouldn't be good for her. But there's times where you will be combative with a party. In a deposition, you can do this. You have to be very careful, though. Who is paying for the reporter on this one? The costs are being incurred by Bill Maher. They're deposing her. The costs are on them for now. They have to pay for all this. Now, if it's like Bill Maher and HBO, but Laura Loomer's not paying for the court reporter unless they're going to do cross-examining later. Bill Maher, no, that's Bill Nye. But yes, Bill Maher is deposing, so this is on them to pay for. Unless they want time to do it on there. So, seems hard not to hate the Loomer. Who pays for the lunch? So anyways, they have an article on their website, which they have since deleted after I exposed them. because they like to monetize off of lies from the fake news media. So you should ask yourself, when your law firm, you not believe in journalistic ethics? And she says, so you've never read the code of ethics. Now, here's the thing. Reading that, guys, it doesn't look like anybody's actually part of that organization. But that's not the argument you make here. They're just pointing out she hasn't read it. So what does that look like in front of a jury? Oh, you've never read this ethics group. And this is where her attorney would say, well, who's part of it? How many people are in it? What does the ethics group actually do? If it's an ethics group of like 15 people, well, then it doesn't matter. If it's an ethics group that like 3,000 reporters are part of, like all the big news media guys are, well, then that's different. And she's, I don't care about reading. I ain't got time to read. You know, any made-up rules, any made-up ethics from purveyors of fake news and people that would have put their affiliation ahead of the truth. So when people read what you write, she's like, and I don't care to get a lecture from a Democrat lawyer who donates to Democrats. So when people read what you write, are you holding out to them as a truth? Yes. So you referred to yourself earlier as a free speech warrior. Yes, what's a free speech warrior? I fight for free speech. You also you've referred to yourself as a free speech absolutist. What does that mean? Well, within the realms of acceptable speech, not defamation like your client has. And that was where they were trying to get her, I think. I think that's where they were trying to get her, because a real free speech absolutist is like, there is no defamation. Has committed against me. I fight for freedom of speech and free expression. But that doesn't include malicious lies, including the lie that I had sex with Trump. So what other categories of speech do you have you as a self-described absolutist not protect? She says, you're a defamation lawyer. You surely understand that you cannot just falsely accuse a woman of having sex with the president. It's trying to ruin his marriage because you don't like the fact the person traveled to a debate with the president and his campaign staff. Yeah, that was scary. I thought he was going to fucking lose when she showed up on that plane. That was scary. That was scary as hell, chat. I think you remember me sitting here saying like, oh no, why is she there? Yes, well played by the lawyer. I think so. Could this be considered satire and political commentary? I mean, no, she's saying she's a legitimate journalist. So, says, or maybe you don't because your clients have lost and had to sell with the president. I don't know. Maybe you don't understand defamation. Have you ever taken a journalism course? She's like, yes, I was a valedictorian. I graduated with a 4.0 GPA from Barry University. And I majored in broadcast and emerging media. And I minored in political science. Have you ever taken a journalism ethics course? Yes, when I was in college. What did you learn in that course? And she says, well, and it's like, once again, objections. I learned the educational system in our colleges and our universities is plagued by Democrats who pretend to be intellectuals who want to try to indoctrinate students with a left-wing ideology. I learned about the importance of standing up for your rights, and I learned about the importance of not being bullied by professors. And I resisted being indoctrinated into a little mini Marxist and communist, which is what we're seeing out of a lot of American universities. You know, it's why Trump wanted to defund the Department of Education, because people know there's a progressive Marxist rot in our educational institutions. That has been fact-checked by patriots as true. That's true, 100%. And I would say that I took a lot of what I learned in college with a grain of salt because I'm not going to let myself be a vehicle. Well, is it kosher salt? Of Marxist indoctrination. The attorney's like, so to put that together and answer to my question, I answered your question. What did you learn? I told you what I learned. You said you learned not to be a communist. Well, that's true. You own a company called Illuminate Media. Yes. What is Illuminate? It's my media company. And what does it do? It says, I have a website. I publish news. I have a podcast called Loomer Unleashed. And we publish news reports and do investigations. And how many people are employed by them? You know, he's objecting. And she says, I have a couple of contractors. Who are those contractors? It's like, you know, she's like, I have a production company I pay on a monthly basis. And what are they called? They're called ARC Studios. And she says, they just clip my videos for my podcast. They edit my clips, and then my DC correspondent, his name is Charles Downs. Of course he'd be named Downs. For Laura Loomer, she would hire a guy named Downs. And Downs is your DC correspondent. Is he a contractor or employee? And says, does he work for you? She says, I believe so. I don't get into his personal business. He's free to work for other people, but he works with me. I've seen your show. You asked someone to put something on a screen or show something. And who is that you're talking to? It's my producer. His name is Cannon. He's an employee of ARC Studios. So the production company employs our staff, and I contract out the production company. So Illuminate Media has no employees, and she's like, correct. And then they're going to another document here. And hold on, guys. We're going to get to... Are we to the part of... Where is... I think I missed the one thing that was kind of funny here, where she went through and just acted like a tard. No, so we just went through her spurging out about journalism. Like, that was pretty fucking funny. And now she's calming down again. So what is this here? Well, this is the letter that she sent to the White House PPO office. And it's a guy named Trent Morris. He was leading the transition team. And this was sent on November 14th. It took her that long. Like, if I thought I was going to be in there, I would have sent that letter in that fucking night and mailed it out. Yeah, depositions are fishing expeditions. Generally, yeah. You're clarifying information and digging for information. Mm-hmm. And it's a copy of my resume and cover letter. And I asked you to turn to the letter that has the Bates number 20. You guys remember the Bates numbers are the things down here where it tells you what they are. So let me know when you're ready. And she's like, can I take a quick bathroom break? It says, can we finish that document? And he's like, well, that's why I want to do it now, because I got to go to the bathroom right now. So they took a break, 10:57. 5 minutes later, they're back. So anyways, they're going through this and they're saying, yes, did you draft the letter? And she says, you begin with saying my 10 years experience as a communications professional and investigative journalist. You see that? And then it says, what's the difference between communications professional and journalist? She says, well, they're overlapping. They have many skill sets that appeal. I was a communications director for Project Veritas. When I worked for Veritas out of college, yes, she did. I forgot about that. Fuck, man. James Lindsay fucking hired her. Or no, fucking no, what's his name? James O'Keefe hired her. Fuck. She said, I would say that qualifies me to say that I'm a communications professional. I work for a very well-known, high-profile, probably like the leading undercover investigative journalism company in the entire country. And during the election, I was their comms director, so I was truthful. And I have skills in, communications work outside of reporting. So I could serve as a communications director. I could serve as a press liaison. I could draft press releases. I have those skill sets. She's like the guy in fucking Office Space. I have people skills. I talk to the customers, and then I interface with the engineers. And when I was applying for the administration, I was making it known what my talents and skills are. Did you have a position you wanted? Well, I was actually told that I was going to be working for Trump when he hired me in his office in 2023 during a private meeting with him and Susie Wiles, his current chief of staff, at Mar-a-Lago. This was during the primary, and Trump had instructed Susie to onboard me to do research and perhaps assist with communications as well in the primary. And then ultimately, there's a whole big story in the New York Times, and that didn't end up happening. But I just sent this kind of like, an official professional manner just to have like a record of my resume and cover letter, because it's widely publicized that Trump had hired me in March and that, there were discussions about bringing me on the campaign. And he was just, a fan of my investigative reporting. Oh, I'm sure he was entirely a fan of your reporting. Yes. She is a fucking loser. Yes. And then also that campaign, I was really hoping that I would have a job. And Trump had said on multiple occasions that I would work for him. Really? Did he say that? He pats you on the head like, I'm sure we're going to hire you. We'll find someplace for you. Trump's like, fuck no. And he says, okay, I'm going to cut that down to the smaller bits. So she said in March 2023, you had a sit-down meeting with Trump and Susie Wiles. And at the time, he offered you a job in his campaign. And she said it was not supposed to be. It wasn't a job interview. I'll tell you what the meeting was. I had been investigating Ron DeSantis, and there was always speculation he was going to run. And nobody, like President Trump, hadn't taken a shot at him yet. And there hadn't been an official break because people always thought they were allies. So it's important for people to have the context. So in my capacity, I was reporting on the governor's misappropriations. And this is widely reported, left-wing media, right-wing media, of, taxpayer funds in the state of Florida while he was governor to run a shadow presidential campaign disguised as a book tour. And she said, I showed up to the book tour and, I was there to report on where I was living, where I ran for Congress. Notice she's just fucking bragging now. Where I ran for Congress and you absolutely got the doors blown off. I mean, she ran for Congress and it was just, yeah, guys, she got BTFO'd. So, I mean, what happened? I mean, here's what happened in 2020, chat. She ran against Lois Frankel. 59% to 39%. She lost by 20 points. And then in 2022, she went forward again. So she won a primary. But she, she lost the primary election to with 42% to 51%. So she was a little closer, but she refused to concede. And she said, I'm not conceding because I'm a winner. And our Republican Party is broken to its core. Okay, I mean, yes, it is, but you're not a winner. You are not a winner, Laura. You're not a winner. You are not a wiener. So she is a loser. Yes, she is 100% a loser. Who ran for Congress better, Loomer or Wu? Beto O'Rourke had better elections than her. Beto O'Rourke lost by less than her. So, and ultimately, the governor and his staff called the police, and they said we had to leave because we were Trump supporters. And at the point, the video had gone viral. I remember seeing this video. She was acting like an asshole. And Trump said he'd seen the video, and it was the first breaking point that established that Ron DeSantis was running against Trump. Yeah, but now with Alligator Alcatraz, Trump and Ron are best friends again. They're together forever. So, it's interesting how much shit she tried to stir up and break up MAGA and try to turn people against each other because she's not really in it for anything but to cause problems. Lauren Loomer did better than Cenk Uygur. Yes, well, that is true. And she said, I was invited to a meeting because the president wanted to meet me, right? He wanted to meet me because he was impressed by my reporting. Oh, are you sure? Citation needed. Citation needed. It's in that conversation, they were asking me all types of questions. The president was very impressed by how well-versed I was. Okay, he was impressed by my reporting and my understanding of political affairs. Okay. Press X to doubt. X to doubt. And then Susie Wiles onboarded me, and I was supposed to start working on April 1st. That's a very appropriate day for you, clown woman. It's a very appropriate day for you, clown woman, to start working. And she says, well, it's strange because the president instructed this to happen. And from my understanding of how it went down, Susie had mentioned to the campaign official meeting, because they had their meetings, this is what I was told. I wasn't there in the room for this, so I wasn't there for this. But going off what I was told, she had told me she had made an announcement to the campaign staff that I'd be joining the campaign. And it was her belief, this is what she told me, this is apparently Susie Wise telling her, that one of the staff leaked it to the New York Times. Bullshit. I doubt Susie Wiles talked to you. Yeah, this take is cringe, yes. And then the New York Times ended up planning a hit piece about they changed the title multiple times. It was something along the lines of Trump is hired. They called me an anti-Muslim activist because I, report the truth about Islamic terrorism and anti-Semitism in America to work on his campaign. And they got a lot of anonymous sources say, oh, well, we didn't know, we didn't like this, or, oh, yeah. There was a follow-up article by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan. Yes, those two are scumbags. And at the end of the day, they got another anonymous source say that would not be working. And so, it was kind of the elephants in the room the entire season. I was exposed to a lot of the weaponization against Trump. And, the president was very grateful for it. And his staff also. A lot of his staff are very grateful, too. They were so grateful for her news reporting. And I was, given access like many other journalists to the campaign. Like I said, I have a media company, and so my staff, we trap. You have staff? I thought you have contractors. We traveled to campaign events. We were given credentials. And you have to apply for the process of course, like through the communications team. It's like a form that you fill out. Notice, he's like, well, yeah, it's just a form you fill out, and, they let you know when you can go to inside the venue. So, like, that's it. Like, that, it doesn't take much to get vetted for staff to be in the press pool. And notice she stopped. She's like, let me interrupt you. I'm not sure that answers my question. She's like, I'm trying to explain. There's been a lot of misinformation. I was not an employee, and I am not an employee of Trump's. But it was normal for me to travel with the campaign. A lot of journalists travel with the campaign, actually. And that's true. A lot of journalists, like, they flew on Trump's plane. They went everywhere with him. So I'm talking about the time period of 2023. And she's like, when you believed you were offered the job. And she's like, I was offered a job. And then you were offered a job by Trump, and then it was withdrawn. It wasn't formally withdrawn. It was kind of bizarre. It was kind of just this, like, silent treatment in a sense. Where I wasn't they ghosted her, chat. She got ghosted. Ah! They just left her on red. Ah! Suffer, Laura. Suffer. You could say she got loomered. Yes, because she's a liability. Yes. Yes. Ghosted. Absolutely ghosted. She's cooked. Oh my God, chat. Oh my God. All right, chat. So we're gonna move ahead here in a second, but we're gonna go back real quick. Oh, we went too far ahead here. Hold on. Okay. So she's like, the employment is being withdrawn. It was just kind of like not discussed. So it was just strange, and I didn't want to press it. Obviously, because I didn't want to upset the president. You got ghosted. You got ghosted. They blew you off. Got ghosted. In Shaggy voice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's Shaggy. Like, zoinks! I thought you meant shit. Like, I thought you meant like Shaggy. They call me Mr. Ghostastic. They call me Mr. Ghostbastic. Surely fantastic. Oh. And it says, I know obvious. I wasn't trying to create drama because I care more. I cared about, the president, my country than I did my ego. X to doubt. I was willing to put aside for not having a fight. And notice they immediately, like I just caught on chat, you said my staff. Who was the staff? She says, my staff, I know use the term interchangeably. I mean, my contractors. The term employee, of course, it's like a difference in tax purposes. But my staff, right, my contractors, the production team. I have my own media company, but because I was doing the show, I was working actually for a media company at the time too. So I had my own company, but I was also working for a media company due to the sponsorship arrangements. And she says, well, who is that? And it's like, I'm not working there anymore. Well, it was called TLM Media. And I was working with them because it was their staff, and eventually their staff broke off and started their own company because they had their own internal issues. And she says, like, I manage a team of employees, even though I was employed by that company. I still manage the employees, right? And, they said there's no question pending, so let me. And she's like, no, I know, but now ask you a question and then you can answer. But that's what I mean by staff. I pay them to go with me. And they're like, great. And it says, okay, that other time in that March, has there ever been a time where Trump or a member of staff has offered you a job? Yes. It's like, okay, when? During the campaign. I remember I was sitting on the plane. I think we were flying to Iowa for the primary, and the president said, you're going to come to D.C. with me. And his staff on the plane were clapping, right? X to doubt. She literally did it, chat. She did the whole everybody on the plane clapped. Everybody on the plane clapped. Oh my God. No, nobody on the plane clapped, Laura. No, the whole bus did not clap. And they said, oh, you do such fabulous work. You're so great. And he said, you're going to D.C. with me, you know. It's Susie Wiles was on the plane when that happened. You know, the press team was on the plane. A lot of people were on the plane. The president was sitting directly across from me because he invited me to travel with his team. And this, you know, there was an understanding too. Okay, so was it an understanding or did he explicitly tell you, sweetheart? I had conversation with Susie Wiles that I have a position if Trump won. And he did win, and I had this conversation on the phone multiple times. Did you really, though? He says it was the week of the Iowa caucus, which, once again, fuck Iowa. And I'm not remembering the exact dates, which the Iowa caucus chat is awful. Like, they settle shit with coin flips at times. He says, but I believe the caucus was January 15th. So it was like at the time, notice, she's saying that happened, but then she went to Mar-a-Lago. Which one is it, Laura? And she's like, there's a time period all there. They flew all over. So they just like, look, she was never getting a job. She was never getting a job. But we're going to move on to there. We're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene now. Oops, sorry. Here we go. So we're going to get to some things here from Laura Loomer. We're going to get into the good stuff here. They talk about, you know, what she's done before. And then, you know, they're going through tweets that Laura Loomer's done. It says she once described Islam as a cancer and tweeted the hashtag. And notice her attorney's like, objection! This is irrelevant. These are from ultra-leftist haters of Trump. Maggie Haberman has no credibility, and neither is Jonathan Swan. Okay, Swan's a little more credible, but Maggie Haberman is a cunt. So they're a bunch of hacks. And it says she once described Islam as a cancer, and it is. Tweeting the hashtag proud Islamophobe. And she has celebrated the deaths of migrants crossing the Mediterranean. Do you see that? Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do. What was the Graham slip? We'll get to that. We're getting there. We're going to it, chat. It's just funny when you read a little bit of this. So 2018, she got barred because of her hateful things there. And to protest, Miss Loomer, who was Jewish, affixed a yellow star to her Star of David to her clothes. Just as the Nazis made Jews during the Holocaust, she handcuffed herself to the entrance of Twitter's doors. And it's like, do you see that, Laura? She's like, yeah. And then in the second tweet, she says that Ilhan Omar, they're showing her as a Democrat in Minnesota, is pro-Sharia and anti-Jewish. You know, and then it quotes you as saying, I know a lot of people don't like me, but that's their problem, not mine. I have proven my loyalty to Trump countless times over. And even if people tried to malign me, I will continue to be a ride or die Trump supporter. Trump deserves loyalty. Well, not undying loyalty. And loyal people working for him who do not leak to the press. Do you see that? She's like, yep. Did you say that? Yes. It also says she was barred from Uber and Lyft for making bigoted comments about Muslim drivers and asked about which of these comments in which she called on Twitter for a non-Islamic form of Uber or Lyft. Ooh. Oof. And Loomer said she was responding to a driver throwing me out of an Uber for being a Jew on Rosh Hashanah, which she did claim happened, which never happened. Did you say that? Yes. And then in a 2017 appearance on a far-right podcast called Nationalist Public Radio, I remember this thing. I've listened to this podcast before, and I thought it was fucking hilarious that they called it out. Yes, Lyft, Uber, alles. I see what you did there. Loomer describes her beliefs. Someone asked you, are you a pro-white nationalism? She's like, yes, but I'm pro-white nationalism. Loomer said, but there's a difference between white nationalism and white supremacy. A lot of liberals and left-wing globalist Marxist Jews, they don't understand there's a difference. And she said this country is built as a white Judeo-Christian ethno-state, essentially. Did you say that? Yes. Did you say that? Yes, I did. And then you see that warning that Miss Loomer cannot be trusted, Marjorie Taylor Greene said of Trump. I'll make sure he knows. Do you see that? Yes. And her attorney keeps on objecting. And notice here, this is where you lose it. This has nothing to do with her having been accused of fucking Donald Trump. Nothing. Her attorney's just fucking losing it. This is hilarious. The videographer says, like, you're bumping the mic. It's like, good job, lady. And then the next page, there's a quote saying, I ran for Congress as the first platform candidate in history. You know, I'm a Jewish conservative woman, a Trump supporter, and an absolutist. I worked at Veritas, blah, 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 blah. You said that right. Yes, and it says, Laura Loomer is accused of Sanders and his wife, who had breast cancer, of wanting to play the cancer survivor card to make people think they're untouchable. Did you say that? Yes. And it's like, did you say that? She's like, I mean, I would need to exactly see what I said, but I remember criticizing her about her use of a breast cancer diagnosis. I felt it to be in poor taste. And then they take a break. And like, notice, we're up to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They come back at 3:15. And Mr. Clayman says, you know, this is getting rather contentious in parts. Loomer is getting tired. So I would suggest we take a break every 45 minutes for 5 minutes. And she says, I'm not going to interrupt my questioning. And now we're getting into the Marjorie Taylor Greene shit. Laura Loomer is the right version of the woke left. Yeah, she's a fucking lunatic. So they move on, and it says, I will represent to you that this is the total document production you provided to us minus your tax returns. So bearing that in mind, I think you testified before break. You believe that you had produced to us articles that picked up Bill Maher's joke about you. And you thought there were articles that had published it without your response. It says, I've looked through this. I do not see any. Can you please look through and identify to me what you did here? And he says, you know, he's like, well, that's a 6-part question. And yeah, I agree. This is kind of like a whole thing there. But he also pointed out that there were various objections were made and documents weren't produced pursuant to the objections. And you are allowed to withhold things if you object. And the court may compel you later. And she says, I believe what I presented is forwarded, but there's lots of articles. And she says, well, they're about me responding to the lawsuit, but of course I was going to deny it as I did because it was spreading like wildfire on social media. Notice, which is how I was notified about it. Notice she's not saying I denied it because it's not true. I denied it because it was spreading. I denied it as I did because it was spreading. You know, I'd be an attorney who asked that. Well, would you deny it because it's not true? Notice she just... And you haven't produced a tweet about how it was spreading like wildfire, and there's tons of tweets. I can't print thousands of pages of tweets. Well, she says, well, I called for the production of those materials. Okay, and this is true here. They're available to you as well, so you can do it. And this is that is true. It's your fucking problem. Go find them on Twitter. They're public. You guys can look at them. Yeah, at some point, you don't have to have her do that kind of thing, like data scooping Twitter. I called for the production of those materials, and they're available. They're within your custody, possession, and control. And she says, now the week, though, and he's like, are you being deposed, Mr. Clayman? And he says, I'm making an objection. Says, a week you traveled to the debate and the 9/11 memorial, there was press about you traveling with the president, correct? She says, I would say there was press the afternoon I got off the plane, and there was press after I attended the 9/11 ceremony. But the press became more inflamed after Bill Maher's remarks. Notice, more inflamed, why isn't it just the press? Like, that's not a helpful answer, Laura. You know, they point out here Trump is commemorating 9/11 with the 9/11 conspiracy theorist. And she says, I don't understand. I'm a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. It's like, so I said it's an Islamic terrorist attack. And it says Exhibit 17. What did she say? What 17? And it's an AP article. It says Laura Loomer, her proponent in the 9/11 conspiracy theory, joins Trump for ceremonies marking the attack. And they say, you know, Trump has a long history of elevating people who trade in falsehoods. And, you know, she's trying to figure out what's happened here. And it says Trump has a long history of elevating and associating people. And he says, what's the relevancy? This is by the Associated Press. She said, yeah, he's like, yeah, it's written by the AP. And it says a Trump-hating organization, which the Israelis even had to bomb their building in Gaza because they were supporting Hamas, which based. Suffer, Associated Press. I think we're about to get to we are. Wait, where the hell is it? Okay. Hold on here. Oh, it's one. Okay, yeah, we're almost there, chat. We got to go back. We have to go back. But here you'll learn that she has to admit she's involved with Nick Fuentes. So, this is an article where it's Republicans fear Laura Loomer's influencing Trump. Yes, I was terrified. Yes, to be fair, Hamas had built headquarters 3 floors below the AP. Yeah, well, I don't feel bad for them. So I don't feel bad for them. No. The one person close to the Trump campaign say they were 100% concerned about her exacerbating weakness. Yes, I was terrified. She's like, it doesn't have any credibility. It's all anonymous. Remember, they ghosted you. The attorney's like, okay. She's like, it was anonymous. They were anonymous sources. Don't stand up in court. She said, you're just trying to make a show here. You're not even trying to authenticate the documents. All you're doing is throwing this stuff out for effect. And she just says, can I ask you, she's talking to the reporter, can I ask you to mark this as Exhibit 20? And he says, why are you just wasting time like this? It's her deposition. She can waste it how she wants. He's just, no. And he says, what's the point of what you're doing? And she just says, please mark this for me. He's like, the documents speak for themselves. And Lauren was like, it's all anonymous. It's all, she's like, I'm not turning into corn. And he says, we appreciate you letting us know all the garbage you're going to try to use at trial. This is an email. It's in an article labeled Trump's Ties to Conspiracy Theorist Lauren Loomer. And it says the former president's association with them, he's received over his dinner with white nationalist Nick Fuentes and Kanye. And it's dated September 11, 2024. It says, yeah, this is an opinion piece by an anti-white author from what I've seen from his social media post. I remember when this came out. It looks like it's been photoshopped. Did this get photoshopped when you guys printed it? And it said opinion. Did you guys Photoshop opinion out of it? Because I'm pretty sure it said opinion. It looks like it's been photoshopped. Did you? Are you like photoshopping these exhibits? It's just obviously we're not photoshopping them. Then why does it not say opinion? Usually it said opinion on it. I know for facts. I remember about this article when it came out. And it said opinion. Now opinion's gone. Looks fake. I'm just saying it's opinion. It's not real. And she says, but you're aware this article was published by MSNBC. But if you go look at the website, it says opinion. And the attorney's like, I'm pretty sure if you read, it's not really. She's just screaming at them now. It's not really a news article. It's opinion. It's from the Joy Readout blog. It's garbage dribble from an anti-Trump publication which I believe has been sued too because of their lies. And she says, I think you're reading the wrong place. Flip to the back. And she says, okay, well, maybe. It's not true. Oh, flip it over? Okay. This isn't true. Oh, there's a backside. Ah, fucking idiot. What if, yes, there's a watermark. It says it's from Jahan Jones as an MSNBC opinion blogger. She says, well, I don't know. Perhaps I see that. Yeah, but like it's opinion. It's not a fact. And so, right, we get to have opinions in America. And she's right. But this doesn't stand up in court. It's like, and her attorney's like, all leftist publications, I might add. Leftist Trump-hating publications. And it just goes on and on and on here. He says relevancy. This has nothing to do with, excuse the French, fucking Donald Trump and committing adultery. Not only that, these are ultra-leftist rags, okay, which have no credibility at all. No, this just keeps going. This just keeps fucking going. But we're going to move on to the Marjorie Taylor Greene shit here. Hold on here. Where? And I got to make sure I didn't find that. Hold on here, chat. Where is that at? Why is it not? Okay, so yeah, we're in the right spot. We're in the right spot. Okay. The Marjorie Taylor Greene shit. Here we go, chat. These are fucking hilarious. So we're going to get to... All right. Okay, so here we go. Only half of the time, 20% of the time, yes. There's lots of funny stuff I know, chat, but I have not had a chance to read through all of it. I've kind of gone where other people have clipped it out and screenshotted parts. So, so they go through these here, and there's a whole bunch of issues here. And she's claiming that there are comments that are being made Bill Maher's burner accounts. And there are comments about Laura Loomer blowing Trump. And it's hilarious here. So they say, this is a text message that reads, Loomer blowing Trump is so funny and nasty. I hope it's really happening. And she says, yeah, that's another anonymous account on Blue Sky. And she's like, this could be Bill Maher's. I don't know. She's like, maybe it's Bill Maher's account. This might be an anonymous account that Bill Maher owns, and maybe you guys are doing this on purpose. So fucking cringe. So cringe. And it says, does that reflect, do you think, the public speculation about the nature of your relationship with Trump? And it lacks foundation. It says, answer the question, Miss Loomer. Do you think it reflects? And it's like vague and ambiguous. She says, I mean, it's an anonymous account that, you know, who knows? It could be a burner account belonging to Bill Maher, but Blue Sky is a Democrat platform, and a lot of people are known to have burner accounts to use to post information to cover their tracks. So what's your basis for saying it's Bill Maher? She's like, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying there would have to be an investigation. But because it's anonymous, a lot of people have burner accounts. And it's well known that a lot of people astroturf comments, like Laura Loomer. It could be an account belonging to Bill Maher, and I'm not saying it is, but there should be an investigation. And they're saying, well, what does it reflect? It's just like, well, maybe there should be a forensic analysis of his devices. Well, maybe he's got a burner phone, Laura, that you'll never find out about. And does this reflect the public speculation about the nature of your relationship with Trump? And this is where she's getting at. If everybody else thought you were sucking his dick, then him saying it doesn't cause you any harm, because a lot of people thought you were already sucking his dick and fucking. So Bill Maher only made that joke after other people had introduced it, is what they're trying to get at. And this is effective. This is effective deposition work here. Because, you know, we have to get 100 and 45 pages in to get to the meat. And she says it's more lies on social media by an anonymous account that could be a burner account belonging to Bill Maher. And she said, I showed you a bunch of them. And at least one of them had a blue check. And a lot of people have burner accounts. And one of them had a check, right? And does this reflect your speculation, public speculation, about your relationship with Bill Maher? And she says it's just unfounded. By anonymous accounts, a crazy Finnack isn't like a real name. So I don't know. I don't know who that is again. You could have accounts and not use your real name and have a different name that's not your name and use a blue check. Could be a burner account. I don't know. Yes, the Botox has gone to her brain. This is damaging here. This part right here is very damaging to Laura because it does show other people already thought she was sucking his dick. Now we get to Marjorie Taylor Greene for a tweet you made about Kamala Harris. And she's like, yeah, it was a tweet. She's like, I don't have the tweet. Tell me. When she's like, well, I don't have a computer in front of me. And she says, I asked you a question. And she says, I believe that I asked you a question, you give the answer. She says, I don't have a computer in front of me, but I believe that was the tweet I made. It was a tweet I made about Kamala. And this is where the attorney's right. Don't guess. And it's like I said, I don't have a computer, so it's been several months, but it was about Kamala. And what were you saying about her? I don't remember, but I think it had something to do with her cooking. What kind of cooking? He's like, I don't recall. And he's saying, don't speculate. And that's true. I don't recall. And it's agreed. Show her what you're talking about. Show me the tweet. I don't recall. I just know that Marjorie, she's very jealous of me because she wants to be the only conservative woman that gets promoted by Trump. It's funny because she actually endorsed me when I ran for Congress. And there's like, wait, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene jealous of you? I believe that she wants to be the only woman who gets praise from Trump. It's very strange because she endorsed me when I ran for Congress. I said that she was a great friend. She said that I was a patriot. If you go back and look at some of her old tweets, so it's very bizarre to me to see that somebody would have a 180 like that. And they say, you go from saying that Laura, and this is her crashing out here. You go from saying Laura Loomer is so amazing. She's actually quoted online saying that. I'm one of her very good friends, and she endorsed me. And then all of a sudden, when she was about to get hired, she just did a total 180. It was very bizarre. I don't know. So just to be totally clear, my question, was that your tweet? She even donated my campaign. And she's saying, why don't you focus on my questions? And she says, you're going to have to show me the tweet. And she says, I don't want to speculate because we're under oath. I don't recall. You'll have to show me. Well, her response to your tweet was, this was extremely appalling and racist. Doesn't represent MAGA Republicans. This type of behavior should not be tolerated. And she's saying, I don't remember the tweet. And now he does a shot. That lacks foundation. You didn't remember the tweet. And they say, do you remember this? And they say, this is. And it says, do you remember Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet? I mean, do you remember this? How the hell is she going to know? She said, I need to see the tweet. Do you remember the tweet? I need to see the tweet in order to remember it. And they say, is it because you get... Is that because you get called racist so much that you don't remember when it happens? Oh. And she's like, no, it's because I'm so busy. There's so many articles written about me. Because I break so many stories on a daily basis. I don't even read all of the articles. There's just so much trash by leftist reporters. He said, so I've asked you for this. I've asked you 10 times to show me the tweet. But you refuse to show me the tweet. Can you please? And like, I'm asking you, can you please show me the tweet so I can answer your question? Is it your testimony under oath that you don't remember being called extremely racist by Marjorie Taylor Greene? Then she says, there's so many people who say things to me out of jealousy. I try to tune it out. To be a successful person, you have to be very focused. Okay, X to doubt. She's 10Xing it, chat. And so I try to, not read every garbage post about me. So you're going to need to show me the tweet. I'm going to ask you to show me the tweet, and it's like whatever exhibit number is that she's referencing. I think that's fair. What number are we on? The court reporter says 29. Remember, the court reporter does the exhibits. And she said, I need to see the tweet. And the reporter's like, let me mark it out first. Please put the tweet in reference to, please. And Bolger's like, fuck you, no. That's correct. It's not her job to put it in there. And she says, well, I can't answer that. I can't answer your question. She says, I'm not asking you that question. And she says, I need to see. She's like, I'm asking you about this tweet. And then Laura's attorney's like, we're taking a break. She's like, no, you're not. Come on, let's get out of here. This right here. Ooh, that's not something you do. You might do that at that level, but not like like most attorneys, you don't do that shit. And she's like, you're not taking a break. There's a pending question. Do not walk out of Mr. Clayman. He's like, I'm walking out, bitch. This is abusive. There's the exhibits. He's like, this is abusive. Mr. Loomer, I'm going to have you personally sanction you. And it says, Laura Loomer, please read the tweet. Thank you very much. And he's like, is that the tweet? She's like, no, this is. And the tweet says, and it says, they're not showing me the original tweet she commented on. It's cut off. It says the post is unavailable. I've asked you to show me the tweet. And she's like, I'm not asking you about your tweet. I'm asking you if you remember. She's like, I need to see Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet. And she's like, I need to see my tweet. And she says, I can't comment on something under oath which can be used at trial unless I have the original tweet. I need to see it. I think it's reasonable. Not really at this point. I mean, I get what she's saying, but no, just read what's on the document. I'm going to ask you about Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet. And she could say, I don't want to speculate. It's like, I'm not asking you to. Just read what I gave you. And they say, fine, look at Exhibit 16. And notice he's like, why did you withhold that this whole time? You're just trying to badger her and harass her. What's the point? Yeah, that is actually a good thing. Like, she finally folded. And it's like, you should have stayed firm. You should have stayed firm. Should have stayed firm. And she says, I need Exhibit 16. If you look at the 6th page, you'll see the first paragraph that reads, tensions boiled over because Laura made a post saying, the White House will smell like curry and the White House speeches will be facilitated via a call center. Oh, no, that's true. God, if Vivek wins, that's really true. Well, that's a summary of the tweet. Do you have the actual tweet? I need to see the actual tweet. And she says, well, Rolling Stone has been sued before for lying. They had an infamous case where they falsely accused somebody of rape, an entire fraternity, and they're not credible. Yeah, they got their asses handed to them. And she says that the White House will still smell like curry and the White House speeches will be facilitated by a call center. Do you remember that? She's like, I believe I said something along those lines. Yeah. And they're saying, do you remember Marjorie Taylor Greene saying this is appalling and racist? And he's saying there's no nexus between these. And she's saying there doesn't need to be. I mean, then why were you asking it at all? I mean, because it sounds like then you don't have foundation here. And this is where he's like, it does need to be because it lacks foundation otherwise. And I agree with him here. Just admit you're trying to fuck with her. Yes, in Ohio, they lowered the Ohio State flag and raised the Indian flag. I didn't see that, chat, but yes, that shit is cringe. We're getting pajeeted, okay? I get it. We're going to get curried and pooed in the streets. I get it, chat. Yes, we're fucked. We're going to get H1B'd to death. I get it. Courts are going to turn into call centers. Do you remember that Miss Loomer? I remember Marjorie Taylor Greene posting tweets about me. She's posted a lot of tweets about me. Like I said, she said that I was her friend. She said I was an amazing person and a patriot. And no, they keep going here, but she also donated my campaign. So if she thinks I'm a racist, why'd she donate to my campaign? Well, she donated to your 2022 campaign, not 2 years later. And it says, they go on here and he's like, we're going to take a break. 45 minutes. And she says, you're not taking a break. I'm not done with my line of questioning. And he says, We'll take a break. He says, no, we're taking a break. Unless you let me finish my line of questioning. I know you're upset because it's getting too hard for you. This is, once again, they're just fucking fighting with each other. This is hilarious. This is hilarious. This is hilarious. I know it's getting tough for you. No, I'm not getting. I need you to hang in there. I'm getting upset because you are a very mean, nasty individual trying to harass my client. And it says, I should say the Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet is dated September 11th. Did you notice that? And then you responded. But she also, I will say she's upset because she wasn't invited to attend the ceremony on September 11th. Because a lot of Trump staff told me they were getting sick and tired of MTG. So she was upset she wasn't invited to the debate. She was excluded. Matt Gaetz was invited. I was invited. She was not because Trump staff told me they can't stand MTG. I'm willing to say that on her own. Several staff told me they can't stand her. They're saying, can I ask you to look at the exhibit? She's like, yeah, but I'm just... she was upset. She was jealous. And here's what she said to Marjorie. Remember when you destroyed your family so you could have sex with a Zangief cosplayer? Tell me again how you and the Arby's in your pants. Whoa. Oh. That was widely reported. I mean, that's why she got divorced in that divorce records. And it says, keep reading the tweet. Are the representatives of the GOP? You couldn't even run your own family. Don't tell me how to run my free speech. And she says, but you're not showing the screenshot. It's like intentionally blurred out. But it showed a document where somebody who she had an affair with showed text messages of her having an affair. And it was well documented. And it's the reason why she ended up getting divorced from her husband, Perry, who I know. That's sus. Because when at the time during my campaign, they were married and they came to my event. And it's well known. She even admitted that they got divorced because of her infidelity. So it says, can you explain to me what it means? But I don't understand why you blurred it out. It's, can you explain? And she says, can you explain to me what Arby's in her pants means? It's like, well, Arby's. And Arby's sells roast beef. Well, it's just an expression. It conveys the reason she got a divorce by her own admission. Because she had roast beef in her pants? Yeah. And they're saying, you mean she'd put roast beef in her pants? That's what you're trying to say? That she put Arby's in her pants? She's like, I'm saying she literally, it's so ridiculous. I'm saying she literally put Arby's in her pants. That's not what she's saying, chat. That's not what she's saying. Obviously, they're pointing out she's got a loose, nasty pussy. And for women out there, if you've never heard it, the term, if you happen to have like, if your vaginal, like the parts of your labia kind of peek out from your pubic mound, or like your little, parts where there's a pussy fat there, and you got the little lips poking out, those are called roast beef because they look like roast beef. Also called beef curtains. Yes. Yes. Roast beef danglies. And then when a chick gets nutted on, they say it looks like a bulldog eating a creamsicle. I've heard that before. The good old ham wallet. Yes. The hatchet wound. Another thing it's called. The box. Bella's like, shut. Well, I don't know what people know. Yes, wizard sleeves. I have heard that one time. Snake drapes. I've never heard that before. I like that one. This is Lacada levels of gross. Yeah, well, where Laura Loomer's talking about it. Cooter curtains. I like that one. Yes, this has been Urban Dictionary readings with Sean the Sandwich Man. Yes. Yes, your mom's box. Trying to tastefully describe beef curtains. Yes. Trying to tastefully describe basically the hanging, your labia acting as hanging chads, ladies. So, you're not making a slur about her. You're saying literally she put an Arby's sandwich in her pants? She's like, yes, that's correct. That's correct. Why you're laughing? Because I think it's so funny. Now, obviously, she knows why. You play dumb. What's your basis for saying she put Arby's in her pants? I think it's so funny. I just think it's so funny. What's your basis for saying she puts Arby's in her pants? She carries roast beef in her pockets. What's your basis for saying she puts roast beef in her pockets? Because I know she likes roast beef. What's your basis for saying she had Arby's in her pants? Because I know she likes to eat at Arby's. And she likes to put it in her pants. You know that? Yeah. She likes to put Arby's in her pants. So if I asked Marjorie Taylor Greene, she would tell you that she puts Arby's in her pants. It's my belief that she would tell you that, yes. She is basically trying to make this like the cop at Denny's joke because she's scrambling now. It says, are you making a derogatory comment about her sex life by talking about Arby's in her pants? She's like, no, I'm talking about Arby's. The sandwiches. I'm talking about Arby's. I'm a very direct person. If I was making a derogatory comment, I would have said it. I just think it's so funny because if you actually hadn't blurred the photo, but it's blurred. And she said, we didn't blur the photo. There may have been some kind of copy editor, but we'll get you a better copy if that's right. And she said, my understanding is that we don't. And her attorney's like, let's take a break. And she wants to finish. She's like, I just think it's so funny. It's not, though. And they say, well, you can finish the exhibit. And it's like, if you'd like to deal more with Arby's, you know. And he says, where's the meat? Boo. It's in her pants. But now we're getting to Lindsey Graham. Now it says, Lindsey Graham called you toxic at the debate. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, that's true. And you responded to him to Twitter. Yeah, I called him gay. Can you mark this as an exhibit? It's well known. She says, several of Trump's staff have told me in confidence that Lindsey Graham is gay. It's like, I think a lot of people know that, the ladybugs. And they're saying, hold on, Miss Loomer, there's no question. She's like, I know, I'm just explaining that he's gay. And her attorney's like, wait, we're taking a break. She's like, no, you're not. I didn't ask about the exhibit yet. You cannot walk out. He says, you were going to finish. Come on. He's like, 5 minutes. Let's go. And he says, are you done with this yet? Can we take a break? And she says, this is a tweet from you. And it says, it's 2024. There's no reason why Lindsey Graham from South Carolina needs to hide the fact he's a gay man. Come on, Lindsey. I like men too. Do you really? I don't think men like you. No need to hide. I want you to relieve yourself of your toxic, closeted anger. It's 2024. Nobody needs to hide their gay anymore. It's like, do you see that? And what is the basis for you saying that he's gay? She's like, it's well known. I mean, I ran for Congress. Like I said, I'm very involved in Republican politics. And I know a lot of people have told me that they've attended dinners where he's brought male significant individuals with him, like significant others. And you tweeted this out. And it's like, and it was at 4:19 a.m. It's like, boy, you were up late. She's like, yeah, you got to wake up early. Oh, I'm totally sure she was waking up early. She does have a point about being in the closet. Sure, yeah. Yes, he's very gay for war. Yes. It says, I will never say that he denied being gay after I said that. Like, I called him gay, and he never responded. So that means it's true he's gay. Claimant's suspiciously disturbed with all the gay talk. Yes. And he says, share with us what you're talking about, but it's irrelevant. And it says, you were criticized by Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina. And he tweeted out that Laura Loomer is a crazy conspiracy theorist who utters disgusting garbage intending to divide the Republicans. A DNC plant can't do a better job. And she says, yep, I've seen that. And I replied to it. At what time? 3:02. And then you responded. Can you read your response? Tom Tillis, who's a rhino who attacked Trump after January 6th and called for All the political prisoners remain in jail. Tom Tillis is the DNC plan he accuses me of being. Let's examine, and she says the tweet's cut off, so you cut it off. It needs to be expanded. Hopefully there's another page. But it goes on. It said last year Tom Tillis was censured, and then it says show more. It was like a long tweet, and you could see the rest of it if we're there. But he was censured by his own party in North Carolina. And he accused me of being a DNC plant. But yet his own state party censured him. You have to practically be a Democrat in order to be censured as a Republican senator by your own party. And that's the reason why so many PACs are lining up to primary him. And then she says it was very anti-Trump. And the attorney's like, if you're anti-Trump, you're anti-American, right? And says, you know, if you're anti-Trump, you shouldn't be accusing other people of being DNC plants. So, I mean, he's got to look in the mirror. The pot is calling the kettle black. And now she's like, I'm done. We can take a break. Oh my God, chat. They took like a 15-minute break. Listen to this. He's like, wait. Sean. Before you say anything, my client has asthma. She's not feeling well. We're willing to complete the deposition, but please be less combative, okay? It's unnecessary. She's running out of breath answering questions. She's winded. She's asthmatic. She's breathless. Oh my God, chat. Oh my God. Oh. This goes on and on and on, chat. There's like another 100 pages of this. So, we're not, I can't keep going. It's 2.5 hours in. There's more to read, and I'll try to read through this. But like, I found a bunch of the things to clip through here. She can't be that good at giving head if she's got asthma. Oof, Afton. Man, that's the thing. Some of you women are, I don't know. And anyway, so her crisis king is all for show. Well, yeah. Oh, MTGs. Okay, I thought you said Laura Loomer. If she's Jewish, Christ can't be king. Ag biochemist for $9.99 says Sean must cover the New Orleans mayor's federal indictment. Yes, everybody in New Orleans is getting indicted. It looks hilarious. For $9.99. Thank you. EDW Raptor says, hell yeah for Teddy's indictment, or TD's indictment. I want to see what my tax dollars in New Orleans have been going to. Her downfall was sex. Isn't it always? KRM says Lainey turned friendly and Sean is vivid. Oh, that would be great if Lainey turned friendly. I would cancel the stream and have fun with her. Chugi Show says, yikes, later than rackets when he can't find his whippets. Also, what is Loomer being deposed about? Well, I hope we answer that. Hunch Dirty Roofer says, you may be able to look at a Southern from a distance so you see how many kids she has and the other mental baggage. Russian roulette either way. Yes. But I'd still, you can look at Lauren Southern, like, at least. Hunch the Dirty Roofer again for $5. Thank you, Hunch. Is saying, for some, it was hanging a medallion that caused the downfall. For others, it's eating dog food. Whatever it takes for the gram, right, Sean? Like I said, I will pass on all of that. Laura Loomer has not yet begun to grift. We have not seen her final grifting form. Yes. But yes, Marky Mark says, I had no idea Laura existed before she attacked Tucker Carlson. Yeah, she's been around. She has been around the block. Luke is saying our government's about to ban bound protesting outside of homes. Jeez. That's no good in New Zealand. That's bad. That's bad. Roosevelt Media News, thank you for the super chat here, saying, just take one look at Loomer and you know it's a lie that Trump slept with her. Okay, I agree with that. Yes. I mean, that's remember at the time when it happened, I'm like, there's no way this is true. There's no way this is true. Jefferson Post says, deposition by the firm of Crash Out and Spurg. Yes. Jefferson Post again saying, MTG won't go to the balls like I can. Laura Loomer. Bella's like, you're going to have the poor in your streets, Sean. You're going to eat slop with your hands, probably made for missing dogs and cats. Yes, thank you. I know it's coming. And Crystal's like, did the Indians infiltrate you too? Thank you. Yes, I better stock up on gift cards. That will be the official currency for everything. John Coleman says Lindsey Graham does not eat at Arby's. He likes the Vienna dogs. Yeah. Been there, done that. Says, can you rate her roast beef sandwiches? Ugh. Yuck. Yuck. Oh. Claiming had to make a quick trip to the tea room after all that gay talk. Yes. I can see that. He's like, I need to go whack off for a minute. Oh, Kentucky is very progressive as well as for constantly voting in a turtle. Yes, it is. It's a very forward-leaning state. Breathe through your ears. It better not touch our favorite senator, John Kennedy. Yeah, you guys, I do like him. Alex says it took Sean long enough to read it. We were going through the depositions, man. We had to get going. I'm sorry. Southern Christians sure do love divorce. Well, a lot of people like divorce. So, are you going to cover the Corey Mills stuff? Yes. Bella has supplied me with all the information there. Yes, we are going to do some Corey Mills stuff here coming up. Probably next week, actually. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene divorced? Yes. I've been sending Sean the Corey Mills stuff. Yep, you have. Sean would never eat dog food. He prefers snacking and Clyde Beans. Yes. Mr. Medicare did do a stream on Laura Loomer. Yes. Suffa Kiwis. Been there, done that. Says, can we rate that? Yes. Yeah, that top tier. Yeah, that stream top tier. Yes. Yes, I didn't know if you saw this. Yes, we are covering that. Sorry, Chad, I'm catching up here. Loomer ate dog food. Yes, she did. Stacy says, isn't it gay to whack off? I mean, Shadow Shell says, yes, but it's also pretty cool. I mean, no, because you're touching your own dick. But like I brought this up before. Let's say you get really burned. You get like burned really bad and your dick gets burned. And they put a skin graft on your penis. And it's somebody else's skin. Like they put cadaver skin on you. So like your whole wiener gets regrafted with somebody else's skin. Like another guy's skin. If you start whacking off to it, does that make you gay? Is it still technically your wiener, or is it like you're gripping, like now your wiener's got another guy in contact with it? Like, how does that work? That's a question. That's a question I've never had answered. Stacey's like, are you gay? You're letting a man pleasure you. Yeah, that's gay. If it's a dude's skin, it's 100% gay. Use your left hand. What if you're left-handed? But it's a dude touching your dick. Well, that means it's gay every time I go to the bathroom. Take a leak. It's only gay if you cuddle after. I'm getting uncomfortable, Sean. Yes, the wiener thesis. Yes, if we keep replacing parts on the wiener, is it still the wiener original? I don't have a penis, so if I touch a peen, I'm gay? No, you're not gay. It's just a glove over your penis. Yeah, but it's somebody else's glove. And I'm gay just for thinking of it. You know what? You're gay for refusing to think about it. I'm asking the real questions here. What if it's female cadaver skin? Well, that wouldn't be gay then. When in doubt, it's gay. Stacy says, what if you get a hand transplant? Yeah, that's a good one too. Jefferson said at some point your own cells will replace that dead guy's dick skin. Well, but how long? Like at least for a while, you're going to be whacking off somebody else's dick. Good. You have went a lifetime without knowing what the Arby's reference meant. I'm sorry. What in the world is legal analysis? Yes, Nick Fuentes said I could have sex with men and it would be straight. Am I going to do the Clyde Gators guns case? I did see that. Yes, we'll work on that too. I'm always thinking of peen conundrums. Well, you got to think of everything. What happens if a man uses a sheep condom? Well, those would be awkward. Jillian says, oh, wow, interesting about your cells. Well, yeah, all your cells regenerate after a while. Yes, you roughly have 100% new cells in your body, so you're gay for 7 years. 7 years a homo! See, that's better than the book, 12 Years a Slave. Write a book, 7 years a homo. Are we paying stuff tonight? No, I've got an early morning. I got to be up at 4:30. 2.0 got me a part of my present for tomorrow. Crystal says then you get pregos. Oh. It's like when you busted balls deep in the Welsh Pride. I forgot to take the condom out of the package. Yeah, sheep condoms. Is this Wales or the 20th early 1900s? I thought sheep condoms meant Arabic. Well, no, like they actually do make like lambskin condoms for people who have like latex allergies and shit. Yes. 7 years a homo and 200 years together. Oh. Yep, we're going fishing tomorrow, so I got to go drive an hour. Going fishing with my dad and my brother and my brother-in-law and my nephew. So it's going to be a fun day. Sweet Bovine says, I still have my foreskin. Am I gay? No. No. I mean, that doesn't make you gay. So, yes, have fun fishing. Well, thank you. But yeah, I'm going to go to sleep now and get ready for the morning. It's going to be a fun day. Fun day. Tomorrow night, we will be hanging out, chat. We might do something. We'll probably watch the Mickey Stein's motion to dismiss. Was thinking about that. I might save that for the week. But we are going to probably do some painting tomorrow night and hanging out. So, yeah, if you have to ask, you're gay. Yes. Is it a fishing trip? Yep. Yep. Are you going for catfish? No, we're going out in the middle of the lake. So it's Lake Erie. I mean, you can catch trout in Lake Erie. You can catch some good steelhead. And I'm hoping to get some because, you know, it's not like Pacific salmon. But I will say the steelhead you can catch here in Lake Erie or the Great Lakes, still good. It tastes very good. So you better have fish to show. Well, I'm not the best at it. So the Stein's audio is fucked up. You'll have to edit it. We'll figure that out. Yeah. So fishing is gay. Well, you're gay. Rainbow trout is delicious. Yes, it is. Steelhead sounds pretty gay. Yeah, well. Wasn't Lake Erie once once? It still is. Like, if you're pregnant, you shouldn't eat the fish out of Lake Erie. There's too much mercury in it. So. Lake Erie, not like it used to be. Yeah, but it's better. But yes, it's still really nasty. So. Stein's got a lot better audio and lore on Crime Feed. Took a while. I'll figure out how to set it up, chat. So. Rainbow trout sounds a little gay. Yeah, but they're beautiful looking fish. So, fresh fish is the best. Yeah. Hopefully I'll have some fish and I'll bring it home and cook it tomorrow. It'll be good. So, Kimbo says hello. Well, we're about to finish, Kimbo, so goodbye. All right, chat. We're going to wrap up for here. We're going to put a pin in that. We're going to keep track of where we were. And, yeah, just remember until next time. Just because you did it does not mean you're guilty. Although I think Laura Loomer getting ghosted by the Trump administration, and she's like, "Oh, they'll call back." It's like a Dark Side Phil thing, or it's actually like Nick and his Rumble contract. Oh, they're gonna get back to me. Just wait. I have to give him my pitch deck. Trump's gonna call me any day now. Any day now. Oh, chat. All right, guys. Good night, and I will talk to you guys later. You're just messing with us, right? No way? Damn. Well, yeah, I got to go to bed, man. I got to be up in the morning. Let's do a Clyde real quick. You do CL. Well, you guys can do that while I get this going. Night.
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had while drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and
yes.
even talking the law. just don't talk to cops. Even when they nab you
Bud, come here,
on
bud.
illegal stops. Just cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney. Was that the fat guy Rick hated yelled at? Why, yes it was, he even knows he's fat. For all this fun and more, there's one place to go. Here on Sean Martin's Potentially Criminal Show.
Wow.